Someone sounds like they've got a little cold.
No, this is literally just the same whatever it was from when we were still
Really
prepping the tour. I've just become, my body is falling apart.
well. You look great. I couldn't have. You just sound sniffly, but your eyeliner is. Mwah.
Oh, thank you. I'm not wearing any eyeliner, but thank
So
you
you're
so
like
much.
Geo. You're just born with it.
I wish. No, you know how like we said, oh, after we finish prepping the show, we can crash. I have not slept like a full night. Like I've developed
Why?
insomnia. I don't know. I can't sleep at night. It's just horrible. I'm just so ill. Like everything's just hurting me.
Oh my gosh, you really do sound like maybe you just have a cold, my friend. I think maybe
No,
you need
I've
to just
had, well,
accept
it turned into, it was Leona's cold and then it turned into a sinus infection. And so now I'm treating that. And that doesn't bother me at all. It's just the lack of sleep is like slowly killing me. So I can't get better because I'm not sleeping. So it's
Oh my
like,
gosh.
yeah, it's just terrible.
Is
Anyway.
it like just like the woes of being a mom and like having to run after a kid, or is it like you really like even at night when you're on
I
your
literally
own?
lay there and I'm like for hours tossing and turning. I can't fall asleep. It's just horrible. And then I wake up every hour
Weird.
in like a panic and then can't fall back asleep. I've just developed some weird sleeping issue.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry. That's awful.
Thank you. I was really hoping like once we finished the crazy all nighters that it would just kind of like let my body catch up.
Yeah.
And no, I think it likes the thrill of like just constant adrenaline waking me up. I don't know.
Have you done anything to like give yourself like a relaxing moment? Like to
No.
like okay, so maybe that needs to happen.
I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that.
Like have you ever like forced I mean I'm saying this to like someone who really doesn't have a lot of time on their hands, but like making yourself have like a day where you just don't get off the couch, or like you just take a hot shower, or
But then I start to feel depressed, like, oh shit, I'm like just in the house all day doing, I don't know. I can't
when
find what?
win. You can't win because either you're
Oh, I
going to be
can't win.
stressed
Yeah,
or
I can't
depressed.
win.
Yeah.
I hate sitting still for so long. But then I filled out oh my God, my therapist had me fill out, we're recording, aren't we? Yeah, oh well. My therapist had me fill out these like, you know, these forms every couple of months of like, just the classic like depression screener and anxiety screener. And I'm
Mhm.
like just filling it out and I submit it and we're just chatting. And then she kind of like stops and I'm like, what? And she goes, both of them have gone up 6 points since you started here in January. And I was like, is that a lot? And she's like, I mean, it's like a third of the whole score. And I was like, oh my God.
Oopsies.
So now I'm failing that. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just falling apart. But our shows were really fun.
I know. You know, I don't know how to like turn
No,
that
just to talk about something happy. Nobody wants to hear a bummer about nothing. So
Oh, I mean, I did, but okay. Yes, our shows went great, and now there's no reason to be stressed, right, Christine?
right.
Okay.
Just drink
So-
lots of coffee.
And blow your nose or something. I don't know. Take
Oh,
a nap.
don't worry.
Take
I'll blow my nose plenty.
Oh, I think you just need a good sleep. And I just don't know how to give it to you.
My ring, my Aura ring this morning, I woke up and it was like, something's wrong. I was like, oh, really? Is it? Thanks.
Have you
And
tried
it
a
was like,
hospital, Christine? What's going on
it
here?
literally said, you're waking up every hour and you've never had such disrupted sleep since you got this thing a year ago. And I was like, I don't know. I don't have a new, like, it's like life changes, newborn at home. I was like, nope, none of that. Just,
I mean, it was certainly getting ready for our show was a whole new shock to our systems.
it was a shock to our systems. That is true.
It was certainly something we've never had to deal with before. I don't know why it was so different from the previous times.
But I'll tell you off air so we don't give any spoilers.
I mean, I can guess what you're probably going to say. But,
I mean, the name of the tour show is Poor Decisions. So, folks, we're just trying to live up to that standard, that high standard we've set for ourselves.
Next tour, we're not going to maybe make the same poor decisions.
I hope not. Maybe we'll
I
make
pray to God.
different, less sleep deprived poor decisions. But why are you drinking? Tell me something about you.
It was going to be that I'm really proud of us for the tour and that
I
we
am
can both go
too.
to sleep now.
Oh, well, I mean, I want to go to sleep now. I'm hoping that my body figures it out. I think it's just taking too long to reset. Like, it's like, are we still stressed? And I'm like, no. And it's like panicking. So I think once I'll crash really hard and it'll be fine. But yeah, I'm very proud of us too, Em, and poor Eva and poor us and poor everybody who had to be part of our lives.
Yeah, that was rough. No, I was just gonna say I was really proud of us, and I was gonna say I hope you're feeling more relaxed, but I guess not. So now I'll say I hope you're drinking a lot of.
I was for a minute.
I hope you're drinking a lot of warm milk or something, and things will eventually get sleepy for you.
Thank you. I'm glad. I hope you're feeling better too.
I feel fine.
Great. Good. Listen, one of us has to feel good at one point. We're always back and forth, you know?
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, I'm just like the only stress I have is house stress, but that's, compared to what we were going through, I'm fine. So, anyway, that's it. I spent a long weekend in New York with my family. Which I'm taking now as like, I really wanted to like celebrate, us being done with the tour. And I kept telling myself, I have these things called M's Day O Fun. And a lot of times they're like to celebrate a really hard stressor I've been going through, or like if I've been dealing with a lot, then I'll schedule M's Day O Fun where maybe that's what you need. You have to have a Christine's Day O Fun.
I was about to say, that just sounds so horrible. I mean, it sounds fun, but like so much energy, right? Do you go do stuff?
No.
What's a day of fun look like for you?
It depends on what I want to do that day, but I schedule a day where I just don't do anything except whatever I want.
Oh, what was that? What have you done?
Well,
what did you do for this one?
Well, the plan was originally, it always changes, but if I don't have a plan, the default would be like just like play VR and watch TV and watch TikToks and bed rot and not feel bad about it. But this time around, I think it just turned into me being with my family for the weekend. But I had a lot of fun with my cousin. In hindsight, my aunt and uncle are very sick of me, and I don't think they want to see me for like another full calendar year.
What do you mean?
I think they're just getting older, and I think they felt overwhelmed about like having to host someone for multiple days.
No.
And I don't have to think about it. It was pretty clear. So
wait, are you serious? Oh
yeah,
no, I'm sorry.
But my cousin and I had a great time.
That's what matters, I guess.
Yeah, now we both have an inside joke about
now
how
you're written out of the will and it's all good.
Yeah, we'll just Tanner and I now know that after 2 days it's time to leave.
I mean, I spent every day with you last week, every waking moment of every day and every night. I can't imagine ever getting sick of you.
You say that, but I actually didn't get sick of you once, so it's weird that you would.
Well,
feel
to be fair, most of the time we were just in silence, and then we'd like give each other the finger.
Yeah,
like once every hour, it would be like, "Go to hell," just like out of the blue. Like we developed like some severe behavioral issues, being in the same room for days on end with no sleep. And so yeah. Anyway, clearly I did not recover well, but I had fun while it lasted.
Every time I was with you, I kept thinking, there's no one else I'd rather do this with. So.
Oh, to be fair, yeah. I don't think I would want to be under the roof with anybody else. So, for what it's worth.
Anyway, I think I've discovered a time limit on my stays there, and that's fine. People have different time limits. And
I love that my only concept of your whole trip was like those pictures of you in the graveyard, and now I'm like, what happened?
I had a great time at the cemetery. That was the day before any of us got sick of each other.
Oh no, because I looked so happy.
It was happy. Ironically, the happiest time was when we were in a cemetery.
I get it. Listen, you're talking to the right person. I get it.
But I have a bunch of family members buried in this one cemetery, and so it was a big cleaning day.
Aww, that's so nice.
We had a lot of ancestors to get through it. We only got through like half of them, so yikes. Sorry to everybody else. But it's just so out of the way. So I think us being there made my aunt feel like, oh, we should all go. It's like it's a road trip to get there. And so I think after a long day of driving and like her like taking us around, I think the next day she wanted to relax and then felt like she couldn't, and so I think I think she's also sleepy. I think it's just a world of sleepy people right now.
I think everyone just needs a nap. I
think everyone needs a nap.
I just wish someone would give me some Ambien or something. I've never tried that, and I feel worried to try it, but I don't know. I feel
the reviews are lovely.
Yeah, well, I feel like if I go to the doctor, they're going to be like, well, here's a sleeping thing. And I'm like, okay, great. But also then I'm like, doesn't it make you sleepwalk and have weird dreams and shit?
Have you done magnesium glycinate?
I've done everything,
Okay,
I've done I take that every day. I take I take melatonin. I mean, I probably just have washed out my body with all this stuff and it doesn't react anymore. I take Benadryl. Sometimes I take Benadryl. Sometimes I take Tylenol PM. Sometimes I take...
Have you tried the Sleepy Girl cocktail that's on TikTok? That seems to work very well.
I mean, I feel like if all these pharmaceuticals aren't working, but maybe I need to try
Sleepy Girl cocktail.
What is it again?
Something about cranberries. I don't know. You can look it up. It's but people swear by it.
I mean,
So.
I take like full on. Like I'll take a Klonopin to help me fall asleep sometimes, and I still will be up for hours. So I'm like, I don't know if a sleepy. Maybe it'll be the one missing link. Maybe the sleepy girl. I don't want to knock it, but
cranberries or cherries or whatever it is. Well, good luck to you in your sleep.
Well, thanks.
If I knew what would make things better, I would send it to you.
Thank you.
Overnight.
I mean, maybe this is it. Maybe it's. Oh, I like how I typed in sleepy cocktail, and it was like, you mean mocktail? And I was like, oh man, yeah, I guess I mean mocktail.
You know, Emsdale Fun includes a lot of mocktails. So.
Cherry juice and magnesium powder.
That's it. Yeah. But they swear by it. I don't know.
Give it a whirl. Yeah, I guess.
How desperate are you?
Well, there's actually a supplement in it. I thought it was just going to be like cherry juice, and I was like, then I'll just have to pee. But if maybe the magnesium is the...
I think it's
kicker.
I've been told that if melatonin doesn't work for you, magnesium glycinate, especially if you have ADHD, it seems to work better. And that's what I take a lot of times. But
is it glycinate or glycinate? Oh, I guess it's glycinate. Glycinate.
I mean, I've always said glycinate and no one's corrected me, but also maybe everyone's just
except me.
Nice.
I'm like, hi. I don't even know how to say it, and here I am correcting you. Standard. Sorry, my behavioral issues haven't settled since our big week. Oh, fun.
Oh, terror. Yeah.
Oh, horrors.
Well, anyway, I had a lot of fun in New York. I went to Sleepy Hollow. I did my cousin and I were trying to figure out what to do. We took my Gammy who passed away. She left her car at my aunt's house, and so we took it for a joyride. We ended up in Jersey. We went to a big mall. It was very lovely, and we bonded. That
sounds
nice.
Wonderful.
So, okay, let's see. I have a story for you. Are you ready?
Yay!
It's pretty good. You tell me, actually. Okay.
I'll be the judge of that.
This is the S.K. Pierce Manor or Mansion, depending on which article you're reading.
Oh, for just a brief moment, I thought it was a boat because you said the
SS Pierce
yeah, I thought it was
Manor.
But S.K. Okay.
S.K. for Sylvester K. I never got his middle name.
Oh, man.
Let's say Keith. Okay.
Sylvester Keith.
Which, by the way, Sylvester... That's one of those names that I have on a baby list that I know I'll never use, but I actually do secretly
But you're
love.
like, but I want to keep it on the list because I do like it.
I'll never admit to it until it becomes popular, and then all of a sudden I'll be like, I had it on my list forever.
First. Yeah,
that's
you're just not bold enough to use it, right?
That's how I was with Oliver and Owen. Those were names I've had literally for at least 15 years of my life on a list.
That means that every millennial also had it on their list, which probably means we were all waiting to have our own kids.
Maybe, but every single time I suggested Oliver or Owen, people would go, oh, really? And so maybe I was just with the wrong crowd. But Sylvester's also on that list, and the day it gets big, I want everyone to know, hear it here first. I fucking claimed it.
The evidence. I know you don't usually like old-timey names, so this is kind of a fun twist. I like that you like that name. That makes me happy.
Well, I like three things about it. One, the nickname is Sly.
So
I like that.
Wait, no, it's not. It's
yeah.
Syl. It's Syl. I mean, unless you're dyslexic, which is fine, but SYL.
I've never met anyone named Syl. I've met people named Sly, and it was short for Sylvester.
Are you being serious?
Why would I make... This is like the dumbest joke to make. Why would I make that up? That's the stupidest joke I could make.
I'm not saying you're joking. I just don't understand. I don't understand why it would be Sly?
Maybe because Sly was an actual word, and people thought that was better than Syl? I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm also just thinking like...
You're sleepy, Christine. It's okay. Shh. It's okay.
I know. I guess it is a nickname. I think in Germany, it's like Sylvester's like a name in Germany, like a relatively common name, and the nickname is not Sly. So I'm like, maybe
both exist. Yeah. I mean, you can do anything with a name. You know?
I was going to say Silly, which is not a name either.
People call themselves Rock now, so you can do whatever you want.
Right. Well, what about Sylvie? That's kind of cute. Sylvester, Sylvie.
See, that's where we run different
You
courses.
Don't like that?
Nah.
Well, and it also means the woods.
I like that, but I also like the cat, obviously.
Right, obviously.
And then one of my favorite movies when I was a little kid was Baby Geniuses, and the main character there was Sylvester, whose nickname was Sly, by the way.
Okay. Well, listen, I'm being proven wrong by probably you and everybody on Instagram.
And all the Baby Geniuses. That's exactly right.
Exactly. Why would I ever question their authority? I'm so sorry.
Baby Geniuses.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, so anyway, love the name Sylvester.
It's a great name.
Let's move on.
In Germany, you know what Sylvester means? It's the name of the New Year holiday.
Fun.
So if you wanted another reason, Sylvester is December 31st. That's when they celebrate Sylvester. So if you want
That's
another reason
fun.
to like the name. It's like New Year.
How do you feel about Keith?
No comment.
Yeah, same. Okay.
Let's keep it to K. Let's see. Okay, it's just Sylvester K.
Okay. So note that most of the information from this comes from the book called Bones in the Basement, Surviving the S.K. Pierce Haunted Victorian Mansion.
Surviving it. Wow.
Which again, what is with names and titles as long as the fucking book? But okay.
Like our fucking podcast. Yeah, exactly.
So this is from Gardner, Massachusetts. And the mansion is named after the OG owner, Sylvester Pierce, who... Sly KP. Yeah, that's right. And he manufactured furniture. And apparently he did it so well that his business was so successful that the town became nicknamed Chair City, which...
Shut up!
I feel like of all the furniture, chair, like, I would not want to be Chair City. I'd want to be like Couch City or something.
Oh,
like,
yes.
cozier.
Sofa City. Although that does sound like a strip mall joint.
Table Town?
Table Town?
I mean, there's so many other options. Chair City just feels a little too, like, poised and proper.
What about, like, Comfy County or, like, Cozy County? Like, something like,
Cozy
a chair,
County.
But a chair's not cozy.
You fucking kidding? That's what I'm saying. It's
they'd
not
be
cozy.
Like, you're right. They'd be lying if they said cozy. It has to be, like, sit up straight city.
Yeah, I would almost want like something with like daybed in it, or like
a chaise lounge.
Oh, chaise lounge shitty. The shitty city. Okay, we've gone too far. So, Chair City. When building this mansion, Sylvester paid a huge team to build around the clock, and it still took them about 2 years to build it. So it was that big. I think the last one of the sources I saw said that it was like over 20 rooms. Yeah.
Jesus. Okay.
I mean,
I'm sorry. I forgot. What year is this? I wasn't really paying attention.
I haven't given a year yet. So
okay.
Let's
I was totally paying attention the whole time. So
as like your eyes are like kind of
I was googling like Sylvester like still for no reason. Anyway.
Okay, so it took 2 years for them to build, and then by 1875, that's when they moved in. So the building was, interestingly, 6,660 square feet.
Ooh, they were like 666 won't do.
I know.
It's a mansion.
6 more square feet, it would have been 6,666.
Oh yeah,
I guess.
Yeah.
Whatever. But it had multiple entrances for house staff. It had a butler's pantry. It had bells throughout the house to communicate with one another. It had ornate woodwork details, big fireplaces, and 2 indoor cisterns to gather rainwater to provide indoor plumbing back then.
Jesus.
I know. I mean, I would have also waited 2 years for a house if it was going to give me a toilet.
I mean, nowadays people
Toilet
build
town.
houses for potty. Latrineville? I don't know. I can't. My brain is broken today. It's scrambled as all. Wow. Okay. Anyway, go on.
So in 1875, he moves in with his wife Susan and their, I don't know why it's stated this way, but their adult son Frank. I feel like if you're gonna move into a little over 6,000 square foot house, maybe your adult son can fucking move in.
Yeah, it's not like weird that he has a place there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like he heard there's a toilet.
Although I feel like he's like, I'm not living with my wife. Forget it. She doesn't have a toilet.
Exactly. If I found out that I was moving into this house with Allison or the exact same house with a toilet, I guess which one I'm picking. Bye, Allison. Okay, so moved in with wife Susan and their adult son Frank, who, okay.
Poor Frank.
After however long their relationship was, and then waiting 2 years to move into this place, 2 weeks into living there, Susan dies.
No.
From some infection. They don't really say. This is where I did a bit of a deep dive. Whoopsies, because it said in the notes that the expected mourning period was 2 years.
Oh, we love this in this mourning stuff, Victorian mourning.
And I went, that's not enough information for me. So
you say that's not enough time, and I was like, okay, Em, that feels like you're not allowed to say that. But
as a narcissist, it certainly is.
Yeah, not if I die.
Decade minimum. Okay, so so Saoirse wrote the expected mourning period was 2 years, and I was like, I'm not. That's not enough for me. So here we go.
Speak on that.
Yeah. So let's do this. So in the late 1800s, I looked up the mourning period of each century. LOL. It's basically an 1800 situation. But the mourning period and the mourning rituals in general were very public, very visual, fell mostly on women, of course, because guess what? They're more moral than men, of course.
For sure. They have to uphold
Literally, that's why,
the moral
because
standard. Yeah.
because they are within control and thought and reason more. But
Makes
God
sense
forbid
to
they
me.
couldn't fucking vote. Okay, so
No, they're not that reasonable. They go
It's like-
hysterical every once a month. We can't have that.
they wear black beautifully, but God forbid that they have a fucking thought. Yuck. Okay,
God forbid they bleed in the White House or something. God.
So anyway, black attire was was worn because it represented one's inner sorrow. Do you want to know how many stages of mourning? We want to guess how many stages?
And this
of
is
mourning?
but obviously probably stupid question, but this is different from the stages of grief, correct? Stages of
This
mourning.
is-
Okay. I'm just
Yes, that
making sure.
requires psychology and
I
science.
was like, oh, I
think.
know this. No, I don't know this. Okay. Are there 13? That seems too on the nose. I don't know.
There's 666. No, it's 3 stages of mourning.
3. Okay, phew. That seems a lot more reasonable.
There's deep mourning, ordinary mourning, LOL, and then half mourning.
Half mourning. That feels like half-assed mourning.
I know. Well, so ordinary mourning is also called second mourning because I guess it's the second phase. But
And for those
it's
of you who are
supposed
like
to-
half tuning in, we're saying mourning with a U. Like if
like
you're
a
like
grief.
a mourning
Yes.
ritual, like a mourning ritual.
Yeah. There are also 3 stages to my morning ritual, which is sleep, continue to sleep,
I was gonna say
see
snooze.
the clock, and then go back to sleep.
Yeah.
So deep mourning, it's supposed to be as if it's a gradient. Like you're in deep mourning, then you're kind of like you're dealing with ordinary
Right.
amounts of grief, and then you're going through a half
And you're like
amount of grief.
phasing it out. Okay.
Yes. And that's what the clothes are supposed to represent too. So you start with really
Oh.
only blacks, and then eventually you start working colorful clothing back into your
Okay.
fashion. So deep mourning, you have dull with no sheen, black fabrics. It's nothing
Oh, man.
eye-catching, nothing fun at all. You are just miserable, and your clothes reflect that.
And you have to wear clothes. That sucks too.
I know.
If
like,
I'm
can't you
miserable,
just
just like don't take me out of my shark t-shirt that I'm currently wearing. See?
can't you just starfish naked on the bed and just cry it out? You know.
Just come on. That's one stage of mourning. That's all we need.
So then ordinary mourning is you are still expected to wear all black, but you can kind of incorporate some like simple jewelry, simple trimmings on your clothes. It's like
God, that sounds like the nightmare, like the most nightmarish social anxiety. Like, can I put on earrings today? Or are all the ladies going to be like, you know, is it too
bitch, yeah.
soon? Like, is it like when is too soon? Or are they going to start talking like, when is she going to wear her necklace again? Like, oh my God, my anxiety. I can't stand
I feel
it.
like in that moment you just bring earrings and suss out the vibes.
Good idea.
See if you can put them on.
Good idea.
And then, or maybe just hold your ear and just wait to see what they think, and then like just kind of slip them right out. Like if they,
yeah, just be like, oh, too shiny. Okay.
So far, it looks like I'm constantly in deep mourning. I guess if I'm 90% of the time wearing a black t-shirt, black joggers, and black socks. But
Maybe we're
okay.
always in half mourning. Maybe that's just our current status of life.
It may be, yeah. So, okay. So ordinary mourning, you're allowed to start incorporating some accessories, and then half mourning is you're allowed to have accessories. They can't be too flashy, but also your clothing starts lightening up, so you can wear grays, purples, and monotone colors. So
Oh,
black,
huzzah!
white, neutral.
I get to wear gray again. Yay!
I know. So this is representing that you're gradually bringing color back to your life. And those who could not afford brand new attire to mourn. Can you imagine, first of all, someone you love dying and now you have to go fucking shopping and it's not even a fun shopping spree. You have to just go buy all dark shit.
Well, and at that time too, you had to be like measured, and there were all these pins. Like it's not. I mean, of course, if you were like,
And you have to be
upper class
super
or
rich to
whatever.
have
Yeah, I was
like, a
gonna say,
massive
yeah,
closet
exactly.
of clothes.
Exactly.
So people who could not afford all new attire would end up dyeing some of their existing clothes black.
I guess they would end up dying. I was like,
Oh.
why?
Well,
no. Okay,
just to
dyeing
avoid
their,
it all.
dyeing their clothes just to avoid the fashion faux pas. Yeah, me too. I get it.
I mean, honestly, if I couldn't afford it, I would just stay inside starfishing naked on the bed crying.
Exactly.
Like, so
Nobody
it actually
needs
works
to
out.
know.
So that's the clothing situation. The time spent in each mourning period depended on how close you were with the deceased or your actual relationship, like kinship to them. So if you were a parent or child, if your parent or child died, it was expected at least a year of
Okay.
I think even deep mourning was
Okay.
1
Ooh.
year. If it was a grandparent or grandchild, it was 6 to 9 months. I guess if you didn't really like them, you could just do 6. It's fine. And then my aunt asked after this weekend, it would just be 6 months.
She's already out of mourning. It's fine.
Yeah, she's like, oh, well, you know, it's been an hour. And if it's your sibling, if they passed away, it's only expected to do 6 months.
Wow.
So And I guess if it's your friend, you just don't even try. So anyway, a
Noted.
widow. I know. Oh, if you're a widow, you could be expected to be in full mourning for at least a year. It was really, if you were trying to prove your commitment or your loyalty to the marriage, then it was up to 2.5 years.
But you gotta get remarried, right? At that time, it's like,
isn't that funny?
Hurry up the process.
Yeah, it's like I'm in a dark black veil, and hopefully that attracts all my suitors who are willing to wait 3 years.
Yeah, right? They just come buzzing on by.
And hopefully the person who died that I'm mourning had enough money left over that I can live off that until I can marry again.
100%.
Yeah. Imagine the people who got like shit talked about them behind their back because they just need to get married to fucking eat, you know?
Yeah, to be like this is just a survival mechanism at this point.
I got married because he left me no money, and yet I'm the asshole because I'm not wearing black. Okay.
Well, you're an asshole because you're poor,
anyway.
I think, is what they would say. Yeah.
Oh, yes, of course. Poor.
And then they would be like, you should probably die instead of mourning in your black dress.
Not much has changed. So it feels like Queen... Oh, apparently if you are really committing to the bit and you're like, I'm never marrying again, you're expected to deep mourn for the rest of your life.
So you either get married or you're just fucking sad forever.
If you decided you never wanted to marry again, if you I guess we're in a place where you could do that. A lot of women at the time, it wasn't expected, but if they wanted to prove that they were more pious and moral than anybody else, they would be seen in full black for the rest of their life because it emulated Queen Victoria, who did that when her husband died.
Oh my God.
Widowers, on the other hand, they only had to mourn for up to 6 months. Plus, because they already wore basically only black suits, their dress never really changed. So they didn't have to go through all this rigmarole of guessing what to wear. And children, which I thought this was lovely, children are not expected to wear any black, but maybe have a dark accessory if you wanted them to be involved in the ritual of mourning. But the depressing clothes they thought might affect the development of the child and didn't want to darken their spirit.
They're like, the women, put this on, but don't affect the children with all of your gloom.
Eventually people did realize that this was probably the case for adults too, which is why reform started against these practices of forcing yourself to be in a depressive state. And by World War I, these practices were pretty much gone, just in time for World War I, where everyone was dying.
Ouch. They're like, we're all going to be in mourning. Let's just ease up on all the new clothes.
It's like, now that we're all the same and everyone's dying, I don't know how much we have to do this.
Yeah.
So anyway,
it's not
that is my
special
deep
like
dive.
It used to be, It's not the same as when this was an exclusive club.
Woe was me. I don't look special grieving anymore. So anyway, that is my deep dive on that. And okay, so then 1875, the Pierces move in. His wife immediately dies. Now it's just him and his adult son, Frank, and one toilet. And so then the manor immediately becomes this social hub for artists, politicians, and businessmen. I don't know how good he was at manufacturing furniture, but within 10 years of living there, the president was visiting this house.
Okay.
So Chair City must
Chair City is
a gold chair. So President Coolidge President Coolidge visited, P.T. Barnum visited, Norman Rockwell visited.
Damn.
And only 13 years into moving into this house and having all this success with the house, then Sylvester dies.
Oh no.
He remarried a woman named Ellen after his wife died, who was 30 years younger than him.
Whoa.
And they had 2 other sons. So after Sylvester dies, his wife gets the inheritance, and apparently his adult son Frank hated that and was like, I was here before you, bitch. And so he decided that he was going to take custody of his brothers to try to steal their share of the estate. Drama in Chair City.
A little drama right here in Chair City with a capital D, and that starts with D, and that's fun for me. You know that song?
Back to the drawing room. Nope. Okay, never mind. I don't know what I was trying to do.
Well, thanks for ruining my nice Music Man shout out.
It sounded like it ended. You're welcome. Anyway, here we go. After it became Chair City, hot to trot drama, Frank, I guess, ended up not winning custody of his sons, but for years there was this very local, well-known legal battle about who deserved the estate. Ellen dies. Frank moves out. One of the older sons moves out. And then the youngest son, Edward, is responsible for this building. Eventually, the family fortune starts dwindling, and that's probably because of the Great Depression. At one point, they tried to convert it into the Victorian Inn, and then from there it became a boarding house. It was still dwindling financially, and eventually Edward couldn't take care of it, so his friend decided to take ownership of it. And the rumor is like Edward just lost it in a card game. I don't know if that's true, but his friend said, "I'll take responsibility and ownership of this place. You can still live there, but I'm going to deal with like the renovations and stuff."
Okay.
Nice deal for Edward. So Edward spent the rest of his life there. He was the last person to die there. In total, there was he was the second to last person to die there. Up until this point, though, every single person who has died was a member of the family.
Okay.
In the house. While he was living there, his friend spent over $100,000 renovating it. And for some reason, I'm assuming ghosts because this is a ghost story, but there's nothing to prove that. But for some reason, the friend ended up moving away and left the house completely abandoned for 20 years.
Oh.
This is after Edward died. So maybe after Edward died, he started haunting his friend. I don't know.
Or maybe he just was like in mourning and they were like, "You're a man. You shouldn't be in mourning." And he's like, "Leave me alone."
Yeah, let me run away. So the place was abandoned for 20 years after being fully renovated. And then by the time it got repurchased, it had to be renovated again. Renovated. Because
renovated, okay.
Because it now had been so dilapidated of just sitting
after
there.
Spending all that money too. Oh god,
I know,
that hurts.
So in 2000, we really skyrocketed into the years here.
Wait a minute.
In 2000, a new couple purchases it, but it was once again in poor condition. It had to be renovated for a second time. They renovate it, but I'm assuming the renovations are what caused this, that like it was just a lot on the marriage. They end up getting divorced, and by 2006, they've moved out.
Oh no. Okay.
So now it's been renovated twice, and barely anyone's even fucking lived there in like a quarter of a century. 2 years later, in 2008, Lillian and Edwin, our main characters, decided to move in. And they decided to move in because...
their names are Lillian and Edwin. Like, who else is going to move in here? It's a perfect couple.
It is a little old-timey names.
Right?
They'd be on the list right under Sylvester, maybe.
Yeah.
So Lillian and Edwin decide to move in. I don't think they actually had plans of like getting a house, or if they did, it was not this type of house. But Lillian saw it and immediately was weirdly fucking fixated on this house.
Oh, gosh. That happens. I feel like I hear about that.
Yeah. It was not in character for her. This is not what she's usually like, but she had a feeling that this thing was meant for them. She couldn't stop thinking about it. Meanwhile, Edwin, Mr. Responsible, is like, hang on a second. I'm looking at the numbers here and I don't think we can afford this. But Lillian is like so into it that he's like, okay, I guess we can do this. And he thought it was especially odd because she was a caregiver, I think, a caregiver for her mom. And this place was like an hour away, and he was like, why do you want to move away from everything and everyone? Like, very odd.
Weird.
But she was so committed to it that he was like, okay, I guess we can at least go on a tour of this place. So the night before the tour, he has this really freaky dream that he's floating out front of the front doors of the house, floats into the building, and he sees an 1800s party going on.
Ooh!
He's floating around. Nobody notices him.
There's a celery vase here. There's a celery vase there.
You got your celeries, you got your vases. And he's floating around. Nobody is noticing him except for one man notices him in the crowd.
Ew.
And greets him, says hello. And then Edwin wakes up.
Ew. He's like, welcome.
Yes. It's like, oh, it's the beginning of the end.
You're the guest of honor.
Yes, the man was in black. Can't tell you if he was mourning or not. And they think it was Sylvester because Edwin said he got the vibe this was the master of the house.
Ooh.
And I know. So then the next day he wakes up and they go on this tour and they realize, or Edwin realizes, these are the exact doors I was floating in front of last night.
Ew.
He goes into the room where he saw the party. He had never seen pictures of this place before. He was like, I was literally here last night. And he can even see the spot where the man
that must shake you to your core, you know? Especially
Honestly,
if you're like not a spiritual person. That must be just like shocking to your system.
It's moments like this where I'm like, fucking read the room. Like if that happened to me, like that's the first of many red flags, but that's the only red flag I need. I'm like,
for me, but then people like me are like, maybe that means I'm destined to live here. Like, it's just
Right.
yeah. I feel like
I would look at
I
Allison
could
and
spin that the wrong way.
it'd be at this moment where I'd be like, Allison, we've been working up to this moment where I need you to trust me on one statement.
Look
We are
me in the
not
eye.
living here.
Yeah.
We're not living here. Don't ask me a question. We're not living here. But anyway, Edwin didn't have that conversation with Lillian. And they are still on this tour. He's realizing he knows this house because he just dreamt it. And on the tour, the people are even saying, hey, don't take pictures. Don't take pictures while you're here. Which also goes to show that during previous tours, no pictures have been taken. So Edwin couldn't have seen these rooms. But they're like, no pictures, don't take pictures.
Weird.
They approach a set of doors. Again, doors that Edwin had seen. And this starts to really freak Edwin out. Despite this, Lillian is like beyond enamored with the house. And he kind of thinks, okay, it's weird that I had this dream, but whatever. Like, she really cares about this house. Let's just get it. I don't know how we're going to afford it, but we're going to do some work on it and then move in the spring. So the first chunk of this story is them just working on the house while not even living there.
Okay.
So funny enough, as soon as they buy this house, Lillian's sister says, oh, here's a video I just saw of a team of ghost hunters here. Which I kind of wonder if it was an episode of Ghost Adventures.
Now, that would be quite a welcome home, a housewarming gift from your sister.
Maybe he actually just dreamt of Zach. He just heard it, like, you know when you're sleeping and you can hear a TV program?
Oh,
maybe
gosh, you're right.
The dream was just Zach Bagans going, welcome to hell. You know?
Yes, it's like that new VR Zach Bagans thing that we're inventing where you get to put on a thing and you're like in the eyes of Zach Bagans, you know? It's pretty cool, actually.
Oh, I love how your sleepy brain works.
You're just punching the ghosts.
Can I tell you something really bad?
Always.
I punched my cousin in the face this weekend.
No wonder you're like, I can't imagine why my relatives don't want me staying with them anymore. Why would you? Wait, what happened? Tell me everything.
Like a clean clocked him in the face as hard as I could.
Did it feel good? Is that not? I'm not supposed to ask that.
If maybe it felt a little good.
Yeah, what was happening? Did he deserve it? Probably.
Okay, I'm just gonna say I don't remember. I was sleeping.
Okay. Well, that all bets
but apparently
are off.
I woke up enough that we made eye contact, and I still did it. And then I went back to.
Did he scare you?
He thought it would be funny to wake me up by tickling me in the armpits.
Incorrect. Okay, so like obviously he deserved. I mean, I would have punched him so hard his nose would have broken.
He has little brother energy. He still likes to like poke me in the ribs and the armpit and try to tickle me. And
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
And apparently he got me right in the arm at the wrong moment.
And your literal worst fear is someone touching your armpits while you sleep. I don't understand.
Apparently our eyes connected, and I looked him into his soul as I absolutely wrecked his shit. Apparently,
target recognized. I mean, I don't blame you.
It was my sleeper agent code had been realized. Like I just
the buttons in your armpits. Yeah, I do not think you were in the wrong. Sorry.
He woke me up, or he didn't. Well, he apparently woke me up for a second. I went right back to bed too. So apparently, I had no guilt about it.
Honestly, if you're being a little brother energy to a full-grown adult who's sleeping, what do you think is going to happen?
I just feel bad. I think it's one of the only times I've ever punched somebody. But apparently, I got him real good. Like it's. Anyway,
I mean, I know him. But for people who are like, "What the fuck, Christine?" I know him, and he does give little brother energy. So, as someone with a little brother, I get it.
He, I will say he never touched my armpits again for the entire weekend.
Exactly.
So I guess
you're just it's called protecting your space, your property.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, you brought up punching, and I was like, oh, that's why I feel a little like shit today.
Yeah. Well, actually, the strangest thing happened. You've really lifted my spirits. So I feel that maybe you've given me some of your life force. Thank you,
Tanner. This was for you. This was for Christine, actually.
Tanner, thank you for
contributing
your service. Yeah, I appreciate it. I feel a lot better.
So, okay, so her sister sees this ghost hunting show. We don't know which one it was. I'm assuming Ghost Adventures. Mm-hmm. And then she goes, uh-oh, apparently this place really is haunted. But she doesn't believe in ghosts, so she doesn't even give a shit. She doesn't believe in ghosts. She just thinks
it's a fun fact. Like, that's weird.
Apparently so.
Okay.
Meanwhile, in a bookstore, Edwin finds a book about their fucking house and sees a chapter of it in a haunted house book.
Oh, God.
And in the book, it says that the second floor is haunted by a man who just casually, spontaneously combusts.
Like in spirit form.
I hope so.
Oh, okay. I don't know why I thought like, oh, does it like cause other people to spontaneously combust, but like the ghost itself does.
I see. No, the ghost itself combusts.
Well, that's weird. Okay.
He was like, that's enough for me to call the realtor and be like, why didn't you warn us?
Yeah.
And the realtor said, oh, yeah, actually, the no photos rule was because so many investigators pretend to be prospective buyers so they can get access and take pictures of the building.
That's actually
kind of
so
genius.
Smart.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's actually so smart. I'm not gonna lie.
I don't want to give anyone props, but that actually is
it's
a
not a bad
sly
idea.
move.
Yeah. Oh, that got me. Good job.
So after the confirmation that this place is haunted, Edwin is like, yep, can confirm because I've been feeling weird shit around this house. Anyway, the main bedroom and another room they call the copper room, which I guess is full of copper, it said they both felt very unwelcoming and dark, but the billiard room had a warm, inviting atmosphere, I guess because that's where they socialized. Where people socialized.
That's where the only the men were allowed in, probably.
Yes, obviously. Yuck. If a woman's in a room, forget it.
Forget it. Gross.
Bad
vibes.
Edwin began feeling extremely uneasy all over the house. Lillian couldn't have cared less because she's like ghosts. She's like, but have you seen the windowsills and the curtains and every little inch? So things start happening, and Edwin is the only one freaking out. One time, Lillian found these like 2 decorative pieces of glass, and she put them on the mantle in their house. And multiple times over, they found them, at least one of them, lying in the middle of the room. And they're glass, so if it's falling off the mantle and rolling to the same spot, it should be shattering, first of all.
Yes, I would think so, especially over and over again.
Second of all, Edwin was like, okay, maybe the floor is uneven and it's just rolling off and it's going into the center of the house. But every time he tried to replicate it, it wasn't happening.
And we've done that, where you just jump up and down over and over.
Yes.
Like, I'll knock it off.
Yep, and it's not happening. So then he's having dinner. He hears a massive crash in the basement. And when he looks around, there's no cause of the sound. But they go back to dinner, and all of a sudden, this 3-foot-long, big-ass metal planter slides across the entire floor.
Oh, no.
And still desperate for there to be a reason to that, he tried to, like, push it himself and see, like, maybe the floor is still slanted.
He's not even strong enough.
But it's 3 feet long and metal. It's not going to slide by itself. And when he would try to do it, it was not sliding on its own.
That's not good. That's not good.
After that dinner, they then saw that this glass decorative piece was once again in the center of the room.
Oh, gross.
Still unfazed and unbelieving in ghosts, Lillian spent all of her time in this house, which feels a little like it's attached to her, like she didn't really have a reason to ever leave, especially the basement, which she felt oddly drawn to. And in hindsight, was constantly seeing shadow figures walking around in there.
And you're like, that's the place for me.
Yes.
Not the billiards room with all the great energy.
Nope, just the one where everyone's walking around.
The dank, dark basement, sure.
One day, the vacuum kept turning itself off when she was just trying to vacuum, and it kept turning itself off. She was like, okay, if there are ghosts here, you need to fucking stop because I'm trying to clean.
Trying to vacuum.
Respect that I'm trying to clean your goddamn mansion, actually.
Good point.
And then the vacuum started working again.
Okay.
And she was like, oh, that's funky, but like didn't take it as a real situation. What made her finally believe was that in the basement, the shadow figures like started to actually, they weren't just her eyes catching something weird. She felt like it was intentionally trying to move only when she was looking.
Ew. Okay, that's kind of worse because like at least sometimes I feel like there's a ghost in my house, like I'm being watched, but I'm like, but I know if I look, it won't be there, because it's like they don't want. But to be like, oh, they want me to look at them is horrifying. Like
it's like they were only moving when she was looking directly at them.
That's so gross. Yeah.
Forget it. So
forget about it.
A year later, 2009, they're moving in officially. And Lillian is totally cool with the idea of it being haunted. She has accepted that ghosts are there. I can't believe
they haven't even moved in yet. In my brain, I had to like do a little, I forgot they were still renovating this whole time.
I would have just been the third family to renovate and leave at this point.
Like, yeah.
Honestly, I said earlier, like that second couple, they moved in 2000 and renovated and then got divorced. I wonder if it was like the renovation was hard on their marriage or if the fucking ghosts. I wonder if they were like, fuck this and just left.
Yeah, it sounds like it was bad all around.
Well, so now they're the third family to have renovated. They're now moving in. It's 2009. Lillian does not give a shit that it's haunted, although she accepts that it's haunted. Edwin is probably rocking back and forth in a corner somewhere. And by the way, Lillian is now not mentioning things that are happening to her alone to not keep scaring Edwin because she needs him to also be down with this because they put a lot of money on
Right.
this.
Okay. Yeah, it's too late to go back.
So that's probably what Allison is doing in this house. She's like,
Oh,
I'm not
God.
saying a damn thing because
Yeah,
I don't want
just
Em to think there's a ghost
zip
here.
it.
When moving in, the main bedroom was still being worked on, so they slept in a different room that they called the Red Room. I don't know why it's called the Red Room.
Sounds bad.
I can guess it's red. One of the next big signs for Edwin that this place was haunted was that the behavior of their dogs was obviously changing. Their
That
dogs
makes me sad.
started growling at the dark. They would cower away from something. They started freaking out over nothing, and they would act like bristled, like if something tried to come near them. So when sleeping in this red room, Edwin started noticing that the dogs were freaking out like fucking crazy and decided to follow their eye line of what they're looking at. And he saw a clear shadow person walking through the house. Like clear enough that you and I would have thought first it was an actual intruder.
Right. That's bad news. Bad news.
He knew it was a real shadow because there was a radio out there with like a backlight on it, and the shadow would walk in front of it and the light would go away.
Ooh.
So it was standing in front of.
So it was taking the light. Like it was.
Mhm.
Okay.
Like a full solid shadow figure. Edwin would see the same figure float by their bedroom every night for 2 weeks.
Forget it.
Lillian, unbothered.
I love her. She's so fun.
I would love to be as fucking carefree as this woman.
I
She's just
aspire
like,
to
whatever.
this level.
Que sera, sera.
Yeah, I love that.
Soon, even the neighbors start noticing activity. Before Lillian gives a shit.
Wait
the
a
neighbors...
minute. Yeah, they're already complaining.
Can you imagine if Edwin starts conspiring with the neighbors to be like, can you convince this crazy
Please.
wife of mine? Like, come on.
Get her out of there.
I mean, this really does feel like a warning for anyone who's in a relationship with someone who doesn't believe in spirits. It's like, this could happen to you. Look out.
Yeah. Look, that's a cue to both you and me, I think, that this is our cry for help, Em.
I already know that I know who I am in this story,
You
know who you are.
Yeah. Oh.
So
I'm the adult son, Frank. That's who I am.
And so the neighbors start noticing activity because they start going up to Edwin and being like, oh man, like your wife's dedication to like getting this house done in the winter is crazy. Like we can see her through the windows painting all the time. And then Edwin's like, it's been too cold to go into this house. No one's been in there.
Absolutely not.
But also, so like, are they also painting? Like, are the ghosts also renovating? And like, are they painting over your paint because your paint sucks?
Yeah, is that why they keep pushing that glass decorative thing? They're like, this is so ugly. Like, we're decorating. You know what I mean? Like, maybe they're like, your style is so gauche. You know, we're on it.
Which does beg the question of like, if they can move things around or if they can like create hallucinations, don't you think that they for a second would like make the room like totally one color just to give you the inspiration?
Just to be like, see? Instead of like a paint chip, it's like, see what this could be?
Or like they can literally transport you into a dream of yesteryear. They can't give you a dream of what the room should look like.
Great point.
You know, you don't have to like so passive aggressively paint when we're not looking.
Yeah, when we're not looking, and it's like, do you see it once you paint, or does it disappear like as a ghost? You know. But also, I'm like, maybe that vision he had of this like old party, maybe that was like, see what you could restore this beauty to. Yeah, maybe you want to bring it back.
Look at the vibes. Don't you love the vibes?
Lack of a toilet. It's great.
One toilet, 80 people here.
Yeah, perfect. What could go wrong?
So anyway, they're all saying, wow, she's doing a great job painting through the winter. And he was like, that's not happening. Then they said, oh, you never told us you had a son.
Ah! An adult
like,
son or a child son?
You mean the grown man always in the bathroom?
Yeah, who is that guy? He's obsessed with the toilet.
But so they were like, oh, I didn't know you had a son. And he was like, what are you talking about? They said, oh, the little boy that's always running, like we can see him through the windows. He's always running from room to room like he's playing a game.
No, absolutely not.
I like that the game is running.
Running from room to room. Like, okay, that's fun, question mark?
Like, yikes. Clearly an only child.
Oh.
And he was like, and not only that, but the lights are always turning on and off. So we assumed that some people were at least coming in and out of the house while you weren't, we thought you were here.
Ugh.
And not only was there no sun, the lights shouldn't have been going off and there was nobody painting, but when Edwin went to go look at the rooms that this little boy was apparently running through, there's a wall now in between those rooms.
Oh, intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
On top of that, Lillian and Edwin are now starting to hear someone playing on their piano at night.
Mm-mm.
They can smell something burning in their bedroom.
Oh, my.
Suggestions of spontaneous combustion.
Interesting. Yeah.
And Edwin would hear a woman singing at night, which ironically would wake him up and then lull him back to sleep. So it was doing both things.
It's like when you get your armpits tickled.
Yeah, like what in the fuck? Like
wakes you up and lulls you right back to sleep.
It's like, which of these do you want? Yeah.
Oh God.
And he's having covers yanked off of him while he sleeps. That, I think, honestly, would be my line anywhere. Like,
I absolutely agree.
It's one thing to have something. It's because it's touch and it's like two senses are being at the same time. Like, you could see it happening and you can feel it happening. I
think I would just be so vulnerable. Pissed off. I would be like, because it's like I'm trying to sleep and like that will wake you up.
No, it's like, to me, I think that's like probably the most like actually disturbing. I would run like a cartoon. I would run out of the house if someone pulled the covers.
Yeah, that would be the most distressing. Yeah, I agree.
Like there's something about it, like, first of all, not respecting physical boundaries, but also when I'm in a very intimate state of like being like not on guard, horizontal, under a blanket where like mentally since childhood I've told myself that's where I'm safe.
It's safe.
Like,
yeah.
Like I just every inch of it feels
no,
so
you're 100%
gross.
right. It's bad. It's bad.
So they're pulling the covers off. They're waking him up and lulling him to sleep. The doors are slamming so loud that the house is shaking. Edwin's discomfort is growing. And eventually he starts seeing a dark shadow swooping towards him, morphing into a man.
What?
And one day he actually looks down the hall and he sees a man in flannel with dark circles under his eyes and then vanish out of nowhere. And it freaks Edwin out so much. Sorry, I've got like a little nose here. It's freaking me out. If you're watching the YouTube and I just constantly look like I'm picking my nose.
I mean, I just keep muting myself to blow my nose. So I think whatever you do is not a problem.
Something's happening. Anyway. Sorry for interrupting. Let me say that again. His discomfort is growing day by day. He's seeing a dark shadow that morphs into a man. Then down the hallway, he's seeing a man that is dressed in flannel, has dark circles under his eyes, and he vanishes. Edwin is so freaked out by this that he needs to like go get some air. So he leaves the house and walks across the street to, I guess, like a diner or a gas station or something with like some food to grab.
Right.
And there's ambulances outside.
Oh.
So he talks to the owner. He's like, what happened here? And he said, oh, that man right there, he just had a heart attack and died. And it happened at the exact same moment that he saw a man appear in his house, stare him down, and then vanish.
Oh my God. Wait, but was it the same man or was it like a different man just kind of?
I assume it was the same man based on the way that the story is told.
So it's almost like this is like he died and then like got like transported into this haunted ass house like for a moment.
It's like he found like the most energy magnetic.
Yes, like a gateway type thing. Yeah. Ew.
Things are also happening to Lillian. Again, she's keeping them from Edwin. And they begin researching the Pierce Manor and find at least 5 confirmed deaths, somewhere probably closer to 7.
Oh no.
Because Sylvester, his 2 wives, a daughter-in-law, and a granddaughter all died in the house. Eventually, Edward died in the house.
Oh no.
And a renter when it became a boarding house. He also died of smoke inhalation because they think he fell asleep with a lit cigarette on his chest.
Oh my God.
He died that way. There's also rumors. There were some sources I looked at, and they even mentioned it kind of in the TV shows I watched. They kind of mentioned, but there's no solid confirmation, that during the 1930s, when it was the Great Depression, and the youngest son was in charge of it, and he was trying to keep up with it financially. There's rumors that after his family died in the house, he just turned it into like a gambling hall and a brothel. And if that's true, allegedly one of the sex workers also died in the house.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But we don't know for sure.
Right.
So Edwin and Lillian suspected that the man they keep seeing in the office is also the source of the burning smell and must be the renter who died of smoke inhalation.
Oh, Jesus. Well, and like the fact that aligns so perfectly with a ghost spontaneously combusting. Oh,
forget it. Soon it's now getting colder because it's getting further into winter, and the couple is using certain stoves to heat the rooms because the old fireplaces are unusable in today's world. So they were using certain stoves to heat certain rooms, and other rooms were just running cold.
Right.
In one of these warm rooms, Edwin wakes up to Lillian humming, and she's dressed nicely, which is odd considering her usual routine of not leaving the house.
Not dressing nicely. That's really nice as a
if
husband.
Allison saw me dressed nicely though, like she would be like, "Where are you going?
Like, what happened? Who died?"
Like if Blaze saw you in a dress, he'd be like, girl, what's happening?"
He'd be like, "Did I forget something?"
Yes, truly. He probably did have a panic like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, he is like, okay, that's weird. She's in a really good mood. She's dressed up, and he assumed that she was going out for the day and just kind of left it at that, or like had errands to run or was meeting a friend. She didn't seem to mind that the rooms she was walking through that day were the really cold ones that didn't have any heat.
Oh.
So he was like, that's kind of weird. And then he even said, "Where are you going?" And she didn't talk to him. She didn't respond. So then Edwin's like, okay, she's humming happily. She's not responding to me. She's dressing out of character. She's going into the colder rooms. Like she's
so creepy.
Feels creepy. Anyway, she leaves and he's like, be done with that. Okay, go do whatever you were going to do. You're freaking
Be gone.
While he's doing his own work around the house, he assumes that she'd been gone for hours, but then later goes and sees that her car never left the driveway. And so he starts looking for her around the house and finds her in the basement digging.
In her fucking nice dress. Forget it.
She had been digging all day. Her clothes are filthy. And when he tried to stop her, she screams at him, "Just leave me alone and let me finish."
No, absolutely not.
Homegirl finds a pelvic bone. They take it to the cops. It's discovered that it's not human. It's animal. But Lillian is somehow disappointed because she then says later she thought that the boy that everyone had been seeing and like all the neighbors had been seeing in the windows, she thought the boy was trying to talk to her or had communicated to her some way that he was murdered and buried in the house.
Oh dear.
And she felt that he was giving her signs to find him.
Oh dear.
Then we never hear about those previous neighbors ever again who saw the boy in the window. But new neighbors move in. And immediately the mom of the house, the mom of the new family, says, "Oh, my son keeps wondering when your son's going to come downstairs and play with him."
Oh, no.
Because my son keeps seeing the boy up in your window looking down at him. And apparently this boy is somehow telepathically telling this son who lives across the way, "Oh, come upstairs. I want to play with you. Let's play." And so the mom is like, I think the mom assumed that this kid had come downstairs at some point. She was like, "Oh yeah, he tells my son all the time to come play with him."
Oh my God, if kids only knew what they were saying to us.
Then they wouldn't tell us.
Then they would not tell us.
So then Edwin even talked to the new neighborhood boy who confirmed that there was a little boy there upstairs who kept also telling him, not only can you come over and play, but there's a big hallway for us to run in.
Imagine talking to that kid and being like, "Now are you sure it's this house?
Right.
Could it possibly be 705?
And
Could
also
it possibly
like
be 216?
And also the hallway you can run in. Imagine if you got to the house thinking, "I'm going to run through this big ass fucking hallway," and then there's a wall in the middle of it. It's like, well, this isn't as fun as it was
the
promised
fucking
to
other
me.
boy. But then the other boy runs through the wall, and you're like, "This kid's fucking cool." You know, you're like, "Oh shit, teach me how to do that."
It's like he's Harry Pottering this fucking thing.
Yeah, this is amazing.
So at this point, now the activity in the house is even more undeniable. The window screens will blow themselves in with no wind. Dishes are falling all the time. Doors are opening and closing. Children's footsteps are in the attic. Sometimes the footsteps would run all the way downstairs to the bedroom and then go silent as if it stops right at the room.
Absolutely not.
I beg to differ. At that point, just keep running in. Like, it's like, where did you go?
You might as well.
One night, the dogs were fixated on something on the top of the stairs, and Lillian said, "All right, look, apparently there's ghosts here. Like, if you really want to talk to us, just come out and say something. Like, you're bothering the dogs. If you really want to be here, just do something about it.
Own up to it." Right.
And what she heard back was apparently the most insane demonic roar you've ever heard in your life.
You hate to hear that.
You hate to hear a portal open like that.
You hate to invite that into your home by mistake. Oh, shit.
Whoopsie daisies. So Edwin is like, "Hey, fuck that.
Oh, fuck that big time.
All the way down." And said,
no.
"How about it's 2009. It's the height of Facebook.com.
Oh, wow. You mean thefacebook.com. Yeah.
The Facebook. Yeah. The book of faces.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to create me a little Facebook page. and it's going to be about this house. And I'm going to ask for any information that anyone has on this house, because what on earth is going on here?
I see.
Paranormal investigators fly to this Facebook page, and curious neighbors are now like, I'm sure, making it worse with the game of telephone. And basically his inbox is flooded with not only information, but requests to tour it or investigate.
Oh.
So Edwin begins entertaining investigative teams coming through on overnight stays, which I think is so fun because he was doing it like I guess ghost hunting overnight stays maybe wasn't as popular as it is today. So there wasn't like a real etiquette towards it, but he would just stay in the house while they were there. So he would just be like, well, I'm going in for the night, and just go upstairs and go to sleep.
Boys.
Yeah. He would just hit the hay and let them do whatever they wanted. And he would charge people, and the fees would go to renovating the house. So he thought he was like doing it was all working out. Lillian, however, she was like, well, I don't like these strangers coming in and out of our house. And I'm like, fair, girl, but also all of your opinions so far are not landing. Like, so far, if it were up to you, we should stay in this house and not do anything about these ghosts. And
you were disappointed there weren't human bones in the basement. I think we don't trust your judgment anymore.
Like, I get, in hindsight and as a third party, I understand she was like just being affected differently by this house. But if I were Edwin, I'd be like, what is going on with my fucking wife?
Yeah,
like,
get a grip, girlfriend.
It's like, if this can help us at all, like maybe these people could come in and get rid of them.
Exactly.
Like, so I also understand, like, I don't want strangers in our house while we're sleeping. They could fucking rob us.
To be fair, I don't ever want strangers in my house, so I get it on that note alone. Yeah.
But at the same time, I think Edwin was like, let me just try to fucking fix this. So
yeah.
And, I got to give Lillian some credit. She was like, I don't know about these strangers. They could be up to some shady shit. And a lot of the investigators were not considerate of the fact that this was somebody's fucking house, let alone probably a historical landmark. If not, it should be.
As people who do ghost hunting, like you and me, it's like when they send those waivers and we read them and we're like, wow, like, it's so sad they have to write all this in here. Like, don't break the light fixtures, and don't touch this or that, and don't go also
into
people
people like
rooms.
People want to steal things, like at the Whaley House or at the Queen Mary, people want to take something.
Jesus.
The amount of times that in the stateroom B340 is at the most haunted room.
Yeah,
the plaque for like the room door plaque keeps getting stolen, so they just had to stop putting a plaque up.
They don't even label it anymore. Yeah.
So if you want to know what room it is, it's the room without a fucking label.
Yeah, there you go.
Which works just as good. So, anyway, so she was right that some of the investigators were like, not totally, well, some were up to some shady shit. Some of them were just disrespectful. Like, one of them straight up clogged their toilets. Like,
the toilet.
Frank would be pissed.
He came back from the dead just for that.
He was like, and another thing, not in Toilet Town, I say. So Edwin caught, actually, this is like probably the shadiest thing that happened, is he woke up from like a deep sleep one night and just felt like something was off, and went downstairs and saw the investigators stealing historical documents from their basement. That's crazy.
What is wrong? Like, people just can't get a grip,
But anyway, so Lillian was not down with this, but she could see that the events that he was hosting gave Edwin something to control finally about this house and like look forward to, and also probably having more people in the house made him feel safer in some way. Like, it just the power of numbers. Like, if I were in a haunted house and there was 20 of us, I'd feel a lot less haunted or threatened by
targeted
ghosts than
almost.
just me. Yeah. So she let them continue, but the more people that investigated, the more active the hauntings became, because they were stirring shit up.
Mm-hmm.
So now the house there's more growling throughout the house.
Oh, no.
They're getting EVPs with strange commands, like look under the bed.
Oh, no. That's no.
Something is touching people's hands and faces and necks. Things are following people home, which, like, honestly, good. It's now out of my house, Like,
yeah, you take it with you.
If someone was coming into my house to talk to the ghosts that were scary, and now they're leaving with those ghosts, like, I'm not going to say a single thing about that.
Take them with you.
One woman who was visiting actually got pushed down the stairs and then caught by something else, which, like, where there's like she was the monkey in the middle.
I was gonna say they're playing monkey in the
middle. There was also a little.
What did I do?
What? What happened?
I deleted you off the screen by accident. I got too excited about monkey in the middle. You're back.
There was also a little girl who was now being seen in the hallways greeting people.
Okay. Oh, she's like, hi, I've been hired as the guest liaison. Like, what are you doing?
They think that she might have been the granddaughter of the Pierces who died in the home. So, and she's just saying hi to people.
Okay.
Some psychics were now coming through, psychics and mediums, and they said that they saw a woman who was strangled to death in one of the bedrooms.
Oh, no.
Which probably came from that brothel story.
Yeah.
One of the rooms where women felt most uncomfortable. Go figure.
No.
They also sensed 2 dark entities in the basement. The young boy everyone was seeing allegedly was drowned in the basement cistern.
Oh my God.
And a psychic also told Edwin that one ghost named Maddie, who she used to look over the Pierce children. She used to work there in the house.
Uh-huh.
Apparently, Maddie is the one who woke him up in the middle of the night to catch the guys and rescue the documents.
Oh, wow. Now that's interesting.
Another investigator actually said that they got attacked multiple times in that house and got scratched in the shape of the Roman numeral 4. And
Ew.
he actually is like the 4th of his name.
That's
weird.
icky. That's really icky.
Right after he got scratched, the Ovilus said, "Squeeze every throat."
That's horrible. Our Ovilus always says orchard.
Apple.
Yeah.
It's always apple and orchard. Like
and
fucking.
We're like, we're not on an apple orchard for the millionth time, machine.
Like yeah, I never know what to do with it. We've never used the Ovilus and not gotten the word apple at some fucking point or orchard.
Which like then I'm like, are we supposed to take note of that? I don't know.
I'm like, have we been on an orchard every single time and we just don't know it? Yeah. In the middle of the ocean on the Queen Mary?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Is
in Long
this
Beach?
the place of an apple orchard?
I do wonder what if the machine is haunted by some like apple orchard farmsman. That's not a word.
An apple
you know what I mean.
farmer, a tree man. Yeah.
A farmsman, like I said.
An orchards man.
Are you okay, Christine? No, I'm not.
So the same investigator who mentioned Maddie, the ghost who used to watch over the kids, apparently she's still there managing this entire fucking house, trying to take care of all of the other spirits in there.
Oh, God.
And Maddie has only stepped forward to talk to the psychics to let investigators know that she is losing control of the spirits.
Uh-oh.
Because she had control of what was currently in the house, but now with all these new investigators bringing things in, there's like a whole new group of people. People are coming in and out, and she can't do her part on her end, and so now it's coming into our world and affecting us.
Oh no, not again.
Which, if Maddie was that astute and like well spoken, amazing, but this also kind of sounds like maybe something a psychic had got pieces of and built a story on.
Built a narrative. Yeah, it seems like a lot of words.
Or it sounds like someone could have just said Maddie on the Ovilus, and then Zach went, Is this the caretaker of the home who decided that the entire portal is damaged? Yeah.
And is now losing control of all the spirits? Wait, what? Is it, Zach? Do you know that? What's happening?
He loves determining things.
He loves to read in between the lines.
So anyway, that's the story that like Maddie was saying, like, you got to stop bringing these investigators in because I'm losing control on my end. So you're losing control on your end. Which, like, if Maddie was here all along, then why were people getting freaked out from the beginning? But okay. Before investigators got there, shouldn't she have had a rein on the people who were like spontaneously combusting?
It was, well, okay, yeah, that's a little out of control. Maybe she just had some that she was like, I can't, like, it's above my pay grade.
That guy I just don't deal with.
That guy's just over.
That guy you gotta just deal with on your own. Anyway, that's the story we're going with. During one investigation, despite being told stop doing investigations, even mediums and psychics coming on investigations were saying stop doing investigations. During one final investigation, a psychic and Lillian at the same time fainted.
No.
And then Lillian didn't wake up for 3 days.
What?
And when she came to, she asked Edwin, why haven't you tried to fucking wake me up or feed me or see if I need to go to the bathroom or call a hospital? And he also couldn't remember the last 3 days. He had been in a total trance.
Wait, she was in the house this whole time?
For 3 days.
Oh, I thought like for sure in a hospital at least.
No, she fainted, and then he just carried her to bed, and she just never woke up for 3 days. And for those same 3 days, he was in a trance and completely cannot remember anything about those 3 days or why he didn't
like
panic.
Gas leak.
Yeah, right. Actually, that's a great
scary.
Point. From those 3 days, the only thing he remembers is that every night he would see a woman in white floating upstairs and sobbing uncontrollably.
He's like, I do remember one thing.
like,
You're not gonna like it.
That one, it must have been the one who knows how to wake him up from a deep sleep while singing.
That's right.
Or something.
Yes. She has some sort of stranglehold on these people.
Yeah. It's like she just lulled them to sleep for 3 days to like win a contest.
Forget
I guess.
it.
So a psychic again then sees a woman behind Lillian with her hand on Lillian's shoulder and takes this as an omen. And around this time is when Edwin and Lillian, maybe the shoulder thing happened first, but the fainting thing and waking up was when they were ready to fucking leave. That was like
too far.
Yeah.
Got it.
And they knew that the tours should probably stop too, but they were like, well, one, we can't afford the upkeep or the renovations without doing tours. And two, if we're not even going to live here, it's not like we're putting ourselves in harm's way. So let's just keep the tours going.
I can understand that.
However, Edwin, they're still looking for a way to get out of there. Edwin is getting angrier. Lillian one day, this was the final straw. Lillian is one day lying in bed. She hasn't even gone to sleep yet, but she just lies down and then realizes out of nowhere she's fully paralyzed and screams for Edwin. And the thing that she's screaming is, "Get her off of me." And obviously nobody's there.
Oh my God.
Edwin is trying to like roll her or push her because Lillian is like, just get me, like, just break me out of this. Like something's on me, just break this. And apparently he couldn't do anything. He couldn't move her. He couldn't roll her. It felt like there was somebody else on top of her. And only after like significant prayer did it go away after a while.
Oh no.
This was their final straw. And they moved in immediately with Lillian's sister, who I think like the day before closed on her house. She was like, I closed on my house. And they went, pew, we're over there.
Yep. Guest room ready. All right.
While no longer, which by the way, she should have seen coming if she's going to show them videos of their haunted house.
The video. Exactly. Girl, come on.
So while no longer living there, they continue the tours, including our favorite. Could this be?
Oh, Zachary comes.
Oh,
but not on a tour for certain.
He buys out the whole place.
He buys out the whole place.
But not enough to let them just finish out the renovations. Just enough of whatever he needed.
Enough.
And so a whole bunch of people do tours. Eventually the city made them stop doing tours. I don't know what the drama was there, but it sounds like there was beef between the psychics and then local investigators.
Oh.
And it sounds like the psychics got the place shut down out of spite. That's what it sounds like. Which
that's probably what
more
it sounds
drama
like.
in Chair City.
Oh my God, Chair City is fucking full of drama. I can't get enough. TLC, get on it.
I know. In 2015, the building was sold to a Halloween haunted attraction company, of course.
Oh my God.
But then I guess they don't do that anymore, or maybe they share their time.
What year was it, you said?
2015.
Okay.
So I don't know if they still do it.
I think a lot of places like that closed during COVID too.
Yeah, right. Today they have reopened for history tours.
Cool.
But visitors trying to cleanse the house or talk to spirits is like totally forbidden. You get kicked off the team immediately.
Wow.
And tours do not include the basement because so many guides refuse to go down there.
Okay.
And then when Zachary went, he tried to tell a storyline that there was another person who lived there named Jay Stemmerman that no sources I saw were talking about. But it's so he like called a researcher who said, you should look into this guy. He sounds like a not so great guy who lived there. And then another researcher said, Jay is what brought in the darkness, but then like refused to comment any further. And you can even see Zach get like upset about it. She was like, I don't want to open that door. And Zach was like, we're here to open the door.
It. I punch it right open.
Oh, he literally said, but we're here to open the door.
Oh my God.
And she was like, no. And then like it was immediately over.
You know how distraught he was about that too.
He was pissed, I'm sure. But so when they go in there, they did actually hear like some pretty serious bangs that made no sense. Shuffling. One of their cameras died. They heard a woman's voice. Something touched Aaron's shoulder. And then they got an EVP of a weird command saying, go to sleep.
Ew. And thank you.
And then the spirit box got, he's here. When asked what their name was, he got the name David. Which was a name they had heard on earlier in their questioning. They said, do you remember Edwin? And they got a little girl saying hi, which sounded like a little girl greeting. Do you want us to leave the house? The spirit box said no. Do you want us to sell the house? The spirit box said not sure. And then who was the woman who lived here? The spirit box said Lillian.
Oh, that's interesting.
And that's what I got for you on the.
That's, I think, wow, that's one of my favorite stories you've ever done, I think.
Ooh.
That was a really good one.
I was trying to do lightning round. It was double the set of notes that I usually do. And I was worried about time. So I was flying through it. Maybe that's what kept your attention.
Maybe. It was really well done. And honestly, that was one of the scarier ones I've heard from you in a long, like one of the ones that actually got to me, which I feel like I've become somewhat jaded over the years, but that really freaked me out a bit.
But anyway, yeah, that's there she is.
Very well done.
Thank you.
Now, I'm doing something a little different today, Em.
Uh-oh.
For the first time ever.
Oh, God.
So you and I have both done this together as a planned episode, but I have never really done a whole episode topic that's an update on a previous case.
Oh.
Like a recap / update.
Mm.
Today, I am doing an extended plus updated version of Gypsy-Rose Blanchard.
I ought to kiss you on the mouth. Are you kidding me?
Please don't. I'm very ill. You're not going to feel good afterward.
Okay. Brilliant.
Yeah. So it felt timely, right? With Gypsy-Rose getting out of prison in December and being all over social media. And of course, when we first covered this case in 2017, by the way, if you're wondering, it was not, we barely had a podcast. It was episode 15. Like we'd only been doing it for like a couple months. And
so this is your actual, this is really just fully well done research now.
I gotta tell you, maybe one of the reasons I had such a fitful sleep was that before bed I listened to episode 15 of our podcast.
You can't do that. Yeah.
It was a bad idea. I had to, because I was like, I have to know how but oh boy.
People ask if we listen to our own podcast, and if I were to, I certainly wouldn't go.
Not the old ones.
I certainly wouldn't even touch those. Back in my reading the Reddit days, people would be like, I'm trying to start and that's why I drink, and I just can't get into it.
I don't understand. And then people would be like, start at episode 50 or like 100.
I'm like, I get it. I also wouldn't like it if I had to start at episode 1.
And to be fair, like there's like My Brother Me podcast, they have 600-700 episodes now. And I remember when I first started listening, I started at episode 1 and everyone was like, that's a terrible idea. And then like, you get, you gotta start at 250. And I was like, are you serious? But it's a complete shift. Like you can see years of like, they've just developed, in numerous ways. So I just want to give a warning to everybody. Like you can listen to 15. It's like a little meh. I mean, listen, it's funny. Like we're funny, I guess, but we sound different, Em. Like our voices are completely different. And I know you know that too, because we've listened to a couple episodes recently for like research purposes. And we have these like radio voices. It's so troubling.
Radio voices?
I hear myself sounding like
a newscaster?
Almost insecure. Like I'm like putting on like a voice,
Maybe we just weren't used to microphones in our face.
No, I don't think we were, because we were like presenting a paper almost. It was like, it just felt very like I was nervous, or something.
Well, also like, again, like podcasting was not what it is today. Like, I don't think we knew what we were supposed to sound like.
No clue. We were just winging it. So it's fun for that, like a throwback, but I don't want anyone to be like, wow, I'm going to, rethink this podcast after this episode. I will say the first thing I did on the episode is I violated HIPAA. And so that's a good start for me. I absolutely started talking about one of Blaze's patients, and I was like, this is not a thing I'm supposed to be doing. And I think even in the episode, I was like, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this anyway. And it's like, what the fuck?
I like how you're like, we sounded like official newscasters. Also,
I did not say that. I said we sounded insecure, like we were putting on airs. And that is exactly what we sound like. Newscasters, farthest thing from it.
Okay.
I will also add that in the intro, you were very homesick. So I thought that was a fun little tidbit.
Well, that's very lovely.
You said somebody at work had made... Oh, by the way, we both were talking about staying late in the office. I'm like,
LOL.
The office? Then you said somebody called people with couches in their bedrooms tacky. And so then you got really upset and homesick because of your home having a couch
I
in the
I had
bedroom.
I had 2 couches in my bedroom. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's extra tacky. No, kidding.
Certainly probably so.
No,
But
not for a kid. You know, it's like what? Like people are stupid. Okay, and then guess who got introduced? Classic Kevin for the first time.
oh wow.
He touched the chair in Thirsk, the haunted chair, and I was like, oh. And then I told my story of the white hand for the first time, Carl and the white hand, and I listened back and I was like, I missed like so many big things. And then there was one quote I wanted to like just leave this little recap with, which is you saying, you literally say. Oh, it's actually really fitting today, too. You said, Bernardo Flaster scene is on my baby name list. And, like, it got me so good because I said, there was one doctor named Bernardo Flaster scene. You said, oh, yeah, that's on my baby name list. And it got me really good. And then today, with all this talk of Sylvester, I thought it was a fitting little tribute.
And also, CK touching the chair when we're talking about Chair City.
Oh, see? Okay. It's
CK.
working.
Does the K stand for Keith or?
Maybe the K stands for Kevin.
Well,
of course it stands for Kevin. Sylvester
today.
Kevin.
No, that's actually, you know
That's what I mean. Like we should have thought the K stand for Kevin, not Keith. What am I thinking?
We're idiots. Big dumb idiots.
Nothing has changed. Anyway, it was embarrassing to listen to, but I think it would have been embarrassing no matter what we did or said because it's us, 7 years ago?
Well, I'm very happy that we're talking about Gypsy-Rose today because I have been wondering. I knew you were gonna because at some point she's all over the place. And it's almost like I am not surprised you're doing it now because I know a lot of times when things are sensationalized, you wait for it to calm down so that we've got all the facts. And she has calmed down a bit. So
she has. It's sort of like, and I will also give major credit to Saoirse for like keeping an eye out and being like, hey, when's the right? Because like we both had known. Or at least I had known I wanted to cover it for a while. I don't remember like the extent to which Saoirse and I talked about it, but I remember them emailing me or messaging me on Slack and being like, I think it's time. And I was like, you're right, it's time. And so this is kind of an update because you're right, it kind of calmed down. And you know, I just Googled her to see what's going on. Just some pregnancy updates on Yahoo News, like nothing too salacious. So I feel like it's a good time to take a little peek in the history.
Shall we crack into it?
Let's crack into it.
Okay.
Oh, it's like the old times. And you know, it's so funny. We were like 10 minutes into our intro and you said, now we have been talking way too long. I'm not even going to do milkshake facts today. We don't have time. And I was like, whoa, okay. And so we like wrapped up the intro. And then at the end, you were like, stop talking. We have to go. And you were like, and that's why we drink. And I was like, wow, Is like fucking...
I used to be more on the clock about it.
You were time
you wanna know why? It's because we had 2 jobs. I was like, I gotta get to bed. Now I just
we gotta stay late in the office tomorrow. I was like, what?
I was like, someone needs to be mean about my couches or something.
No, yeah, you needed to be bullied at work the next day. So
I did.
I had to rein it in because I was obviously drinking. And then I go, I'm drinking this Chardonnay. It's called Willow Tail or some shit. And I'm like, what am I talking about? I'm like, it's one of my favorites. I'm like, what am I saying? I don't even know what that is. I mean, maybe it was my favorite 7 years ago, but
I will say, just to give a full update all the way through, if I was talking about The Office back then, if there was somebody I was ever complaining about, I'm sure there's other episodes where I'm taking my meds, by the way. If there was one person or prop master I was talking about back then who used to always bother me, well, there's a few of them, but I remember back then always having a problem with this one person. And I will tell you an update, they recently passed away.
Oh no.
And so now I don't know how to feel about it. But if you listen back to me being particularly cruel about any few people, one of them might not be here anymore.
They're dead. Thanks, Em.
Well, I just know that we saw that through, and now I feel a little guilty about
now they're haunting M for eternity.
No, they well, I don't know. Maybe. Whatever.
You know, I'll text you about this later. Okay.
Oh, okay. Anyway, that's the update on my old prop life, is that the person I did not like is no longer with us, and I don't know how to feel about it.
R.I.P.
And that's why I drink as I sip my reason.
So, Gypsy-Rose Blanchard, and as Saoirse added, extended with new information and updates on her release. And if you have not listened to us cover the case on Gypsy-Rose, you do not have to. However, if you don't know the story at all, I would recommend listening to an episode or watching a docuseries or something about it, because I do cover the story, but it's not quite as like maybe in depth and like alarming as maybe. I mean, it's very alarming, obviously, but I think I'm telling the story now with more of an insight into the actual case
Right.
versus
And
like
so just doing
a full
research.
cover. Yeah, yeah.
Which
And
like I feel like I obviously know the story. I know the bare bones of it, but I actively don't watch anything true crime because I know
right.
eventually I might cover it. So if it hasn't been brought onto my TikTok algorithm, I don't know about it, which means I probably actually know the
I
aftermath
was
a
gonna
lot better
say,
than the early part.
you
again.
probably know more about Gypsy-Rose than I do at this point. I will say I do feel bad and I want to apologize with a laugh. Like, I want to apologize, but also laugh about it because I can so see now why you have this paranoia of like making a judgment call during my stories. And then, because you were like
When I
saying
said
like
something
that
fucked
guy
up.
should rot in hell or whatever, and then it's like I was clearly baiting you because you didn't know the story at all. So I was like telling the story of like, oh, they got, Dee Dee Blanchard was murdered, and you were like, who could do that to this woman? She's worked so hard, and it's just so funny because I'm like, well, you just didn't know the story, and I set it up to be that way, like a shock twist ending.
400 episodes. I'm glad I'm finally validated.
Yeah, no, I think you've been validated. I think everyone kind of felt the energy shift of like you're like, I'm not gonna fucking say anything until you tell me.
I've learned to keep quiet, which I always feel bad about, but also it's like, first of all, what am I going to joke about during if I can't find a way to segue out of your story entirely to make a joke, I just don't make a joke.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know anymore if you're pulling one on me, if you're sly.
Ooh, no, I'm still.
Okay.
I'm silly.
Silly for sure, yeah.
We did make some jokes that looking back were not outrageously inappropriate, but were definitely in poor taste. Like,
I still think about when I don't even want to say it out loud. I still think about some jokes where I'm just like, oh, I can't believe I did that.
And even some that caught on, and I think all of us and our listeners have also kind of moved past a lot of it. It's almost like we all were like, that's funny. And then like 5 years later, we're like, maybe not as funny as we thought 5 years ago. I think everyone's in the same boat. Like, we're all kind of learning.
Nothing cancelable, but still something I'm not proud of.
Not something I'm proud of, for sure.
Yeah,
and it's like, I'm just comforted that it's episode 15 and genuinely, like, we didn't really know what we were doing.
We're officially podcasting through the ages, which means we have grown through.
I
from
like to
episode
think
1.
so. I like to think so. And so, do you have a butler? Is that Allison or is that a butler?
What just happened? What are you talking about?
Well, what are you doing when you do this?
Oh, there's a shelf here. I'm putting my drink on a shelf.
You keep looking and like almost smiling, and it looks like you're just handing it off. And then
I'm smiling. I think because I'm just happy to not have to hold it anymore.
When you were handed the pills, I was like, oh, somebody just handed Em pills, and then it looked like you handed it back to somebody and kind of looked at them.
It does look exactly
and then you said,
like.
And the reason I say butler is because while I was blowing my nose, everyone, fun fact, Em was telling me that Allison has jury duty. And so I was like, wait a minute, do you have a butler? Am I like missing out on a huge update?
The only thing that's here is
it's a shelf.
It's a shelf. And there's, actually I was going to
imagine after episode 15 and now we have butlers.
If someone heard, like, just started here and yeah. No, I actually this was one of the reasons why I drank, is because I went to Sleepy Hollow. I dragged Tanner with me. I was like, I'm going to Sleepy Hollow on principle, and I'm getting something that says Sleepy Hollow on it in Sleepy Hollow, because there is Tarrytown, yes, and I know technically they're kind of the same, but I was like, I need to go to
I bought you a bunch of shit. I thought you weren't going back to Sleepy Hollow, so Eva and I were like on a mission.
Did you get me stuff?
A bunch of shit.
Thank God, because here's my story. We went to Sleepy Hollow, and I had given the weekend to my aunt, and on my Monday, I was going to go with Tanner to Sleepy Hollow and do all the stuff. Sleepy Hollow is in fact quite sleepy and shuts down everything. And so the only store that was open that had anything with the word Sleepy Hollow on it was a bike store. So I got a water bottle that said Sleepy Hollow Bikes.
Oh, don't worry. I've got you covered.
Don't worry. That was all I could find.
Okay, this is so comforting because I bought so many things because I wasn't sure which ones to give to you. So now you can have your pick.
Okay, but also and we're seeing each other next week. Am I seeing Leona next week?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah, because they're in... Well, no, maybe in New Hampshire, though.
Because I have a present for Leona, and maybe we can do a swap where
she'll be in New Hampshire with us.
Great. Okay.
So
super duper. We'll do a present swap.
Aw, she's not going to like the swapping part. where she
No,
has to
she'll
give
like it.
you something. But
It'll be worth it. She'll like it.
okay, great.
Cool.
So anyway, tell your butler to keep it down because I am going to
Okay.
cover Gypsy-Rose Blanchard. And I'm going to give her a little recap. It's some of it is exactly the same as what I talked about in episode 15. A lot of it is new. So let's just dive into it. Gypsy
Great.
Rose. She was born on July 27th, 1991, which incidentally is a fact that she would not know for most of her life. Her father, Rod, was only 17 when he found out that his girlfriend, Claudine, who went by Dee Dee, was pregnant with Gypsy. And so he's 17. Dee Dee tells him she's only 21. However, she was actually 24. So she's already lying.
Great.
Like early on. Rod married Dee Dee because he's 17. He thinks that's the right thing to do. She's pregnant. But then on his 18th birthday, he kind of gets cold feet. He's like, we're not getting married for the right reasons. This is a bad fit. So, we don't really love each other. So they separated, but he wanted to insist on supporting Dee Dee through the pregnancy and supporting his future child. So they separated, and Dee Dee moved in with Gypsy to her parents' house, and Rod actively remained involved in Gypsy's life, made child support payments, would take her on trips, tried to be as present as he could. When Gypsy was 3 months old, Dee Dee called Rod and told him that Gypsy had sleep apnea and often stopped breathing in her sleep, which I will say, as a parent now, I do understand that anxiety because there's so much talk around SIDS and sleep, the correct way to sleep on your back, don't let them suffocate. There's so much scary, I don't want to say fear mongering because it's a valid fear, but there's a lot of stress around that topic. So I can imagine that could be a big trigger for somebody with like health related anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And so she told Rod, hey, Gypsy has been stopping breathing in her sleep. She has sleep apnea, and all of the tests, she did all these tests on baby Gypsy. They all came back negative, but Dee Dee insisted that something was wrong. So as a result, because I guess that wasn't enough, she told people that Gypsy actually had a chromosomal genetic disorder. So think Down syndrome, trisomy 13 and 18. And, Dee Dee didn't specify which chromosomal genetic disorder Gypsy had. And, it is true that some people have genetic conditions that are so rare they don't even have a proper name. But it just didn't seem quite right because it didn't seem as if Dee Dee specifically discussed like this rare unknown condition. She was just more vague about it than anything and just said like, oh, it just causes all these issues rather than like being specific.
Mm.
After that, things quickly spiraled, and when Gypsy was very young, she was in a motorcycle accident with her grandfather, and even though she only had like scrapes and bruising, it was very like superficial injuries.
Sure.
Dee Dee kind of took that and ran with it and put Gypsy in a leg brace.
Oh my.
Yeah. Then she brought home a wheelchair. She told Gypsy to use it for a few weeks after her motorcycle injury, but then a few weeks turned into months until Dee Dee would not allow Gypsy to walk at all anymore.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah. And I remember one thing I mentioned in episode 15 is that Dee Dee would tell people that Gypsy had this muscular dystrophy, and she had this genetic disorder, this muscular dystrophy genetic disorder, which, makes you slowly lose muscle mass throughout your body over time. And Gypsy, looking back, had said something like, I had perfectly healthy muscles until she made me sit in a wheelchair for years and not eat proper nutrition. And, then my body deteriorated as a result.
It's like its own self-fulfilling prophecy in some way of like, oh well, yeah, you're right, I can't walk, but it's also you made
You're
sure I
making me
can't
sick.
walk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So Dee Dee also said Gypsy was diagnosed with severe asthma and that she experienced frequent seizures. She couldn't earn her own money because she needed to be Gypsy's full-time caretaker at home, so instead she received supplemental security income, SSI, due to Gypsy's disabilities. She received food assistance, and a lot of Gypsy's medical expenses, which I imagine were quite high, and we'll get into that, were covered by Medicaid. So that's kind of how their life was set up. Dee Dee, as far as like her friends and neighbors, they always loved her, which I find so interesting because looking back, pop culture only knows her as a villain and then a murder victim, and it's sort of like so weird to hear.
Yeah, but it's nice to know where like where it all began.
Yeah, she definitely was good at bamboozling people. She clearly was good at this. She was considered very compassionate, very personable. She made a lot of friends really easily. She was very like social, so she would have like parties and people over, and she just loved like relishing in the attention of having this sick child and saying, "Oh, despite all we face, like all we're up against, you know, we still
Well, because then people are patting you on the back, being like, "Oh,
persevere."
what
Yeah.
a light! She still has her charm despite
Ugh.
all of her tragedy." You know,
Oh,
like
so much tragedy.
it's people
Yes.
treating you like a martyr.
Oh, completely, completely. And celebrities like Miranda Lambert even famously visited Gypsy and gave them a check for several $1,000s. Rod, who had remarried a woman named Christy, so this would be Gypsy's stepmother, sent $1,200 a month to Dee Dee for Gypsy's care, you know, as the
Wow.
dad. Something he continued doing even after Gypsy turned 18 and he wasn't legally obligated to. Christy was very encouraging of Rod's relationship with her stepdaughter, and he would call Gypsy on the phone, he would send her presents, and she never really asked for anything specific, but Dee Dee would call Rod and be like, "Oh, Gypsy wants game consoles and all these expensive things,"
Mm,
and, you know, he would mail them over, but it wasn't actually anything Gypsy had asked for herself. So, you know, Dee Dee was kind of using him in that way. Rod and Christy were very supportive of Gypsy. They sent a lot of money her way. They tried to support her through her medical treatments and assessments. They tried to see her as often as they could. And it was just heartbreaking to them that this little girl had to endure so much pain. And that all escalated when Gypsy was only 8 years old, and Dee Dee called them and said the heartbreaking news that Gypsy had just been diagnosed with leukemia.
ugh.
Every day, Dee Dee gave Gypsy a variety of medications, like dozens of them, which she told her was cancer treatment. And Gypsy, being 8 years old, how is she supposed to know any different?
Oh yeah.
You
I
know,
mean, you just take it.
you just do what your mom says.
Yeah.
She only knew that above all else, her mother loved her and would do anything for her. And so she just did what her mom told her to do. And during Gypsy's supposed cancer treatment, Dee Dee brought a new concern to Gypsy's pediatrician, and that was that Gypsy wouldn't eat. Dee Dee claimed Gypsy wouldn't eat at all because she was so anxious about eating that she barely ate, and they thought it sounded a lot like ARFID, which, thank you, Em, for teaching me how to say that properly.
I have a step sibling who has it, so.
Yeah, it's actually stands for avoidant/restrictive food intake disorder. And this is a condition that causes people to avoid food intake, so avoid eating due to severe anxiety. And they diagnosed her with that. Gypsy then received a feeding tube, which required surgery to create an opening in her abdomen. And instead of chewing and swallowing her food, and remember, this girl has no problem with food. Her mom's just inventing it. So
Right.
now she has a feeding tube, even though she's has a perfectly
If she
normal appetite. Yeah.
So do we know if this was like a way to like keep her like slim and trim of
Just
like
dependent, I think. Just another
okay.
illness.
I don't know
you
if
know?
this was like on top of it all too. It was like
No, I mean, she was always very small and very weak. So I think a lot of it was to keep her kind of under her thumb. So
Mhm.
maybe not skinny, but like small and maybe malnourished a bit and
Yeah.
dependent. I think dependency was the big thing because, I mean, I mentioned this
Sure.
later, but Gypsy thinks about running away and she thinks, oh, I'm being fed through a feeding tube. How am I supposed to run away? You know, it's like
Well,
you're just dependent.
and the whole point of Munchausen by proxy too is like being needed. Is like
Being needed. Exactly.
so yeah, that makes sense.
And it's like she's just going to escalate. And a lot of times these cases tragically end in death because
Right.
where else can you go, you know? And so she would have liquid nutrition directly fed into her stomach through this feeding tube. And also, this is also a disturbing thought. Her mother could
Mhm.
her mother could administer medication through this feeding tube. So
Yep.
her mom was able to kind of have even more say on what was consumed and what wasn't. Like there's not even the chance of like me, you know, spitting out my Flintstones vitamins and hiding them in my pocket like I used to do because they made me throw up.
Right now it's
Uh,
just directly into the bloodstream.
It's just she had no
Or-
choice.
yeah.
So this gave Dee Dee absolute control over Gypsy, who could no longer eat on her own. One day, Dee Dee, she broke her leg and she had to go to the hospital while she recovered. So Gypsy stayed at home with her grandpa and his second wife. So this would have been not her biological grandmother, but her step grandmother. And Dee Dee very much disliked this woman, probably because she saw some red flags, maybe.
Hmm.
But either way, Gypsy's family, her grandpa and her step-grandma, were shocked when Gypsy stayed with them and was eating normally and comfortably the entire time Dee Dee was in the hospital.
Bloop.
And then literally jumped on a trampoline with some other kids. Like,
with her legs that don't work.
Yes, exactly. She ate happily. She had no issue, no aversions to food. She could walk fine. She jumped on a trampoline. But when Dee Dee came home, of course, Gypsy had to return to her wheelchair and rely on her feeding tube again. And so then Dee Dee's family is like, okay, these red flags are getting out of hand. Like, how many
It's not a red flag anymore. We know what's going on now. Okay.
Yes. But, at the same time, they've known Gypsy-Rose as being sick her whole life. And so they're not thinking, oh, all of it's fake. They're thinking, like, how much of this is being exaggerated?
Right.
Like,
or like, is she getting better? And like,
right.
we're
And
just
she's
seeing
not
signs of that.
100%. Like, is she just not being affected by certain things, but her mom won't let her, explore because she's too worried about her health or her safety. So it was like, how much of it is bullshit? That was their word. And how much of it was real? Like, it's hard to tell, especially when she is sick because her mother is making her sick. So it's like, technically she's unwell, but it's for different reasons than leukemia.
Mm-hmm.
So Gypsy did not even go to school. I imagine that was another control issue. Dee Dee claimed she homeschooled Gypsy, but the family knew that was not true. And then, weirdly enough, Gypsy's step-grandma began to fall ill, and she had these unusual and inexplicable symptoms. And then one day, little Gypsy saw a bottle of Roundup brand weed killer and said, "Oh, vitamins."
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And when Grandma and Grandpa asked, "Hey, honey, why are you calling those vitamins?" she says, "Those are the vitamins Mommy puts in Grandma's food."
Interesting. I'm surprised that they even clocked that, because I would have just thought, oh, a little kid holding anything, they could think like, oh, I'm supposed to just put this in my mouth. Like,
well,
but
but she's not that little. She's like, what, 10 or something? Like, she's old enough where she's like not just saying words. Like, she's like, oh, that's what Mom puts in the food.
Gotcha.
And they're like, but she doesn't know enough to realize that's poison,
Yes.
But the fact that her mom was like, oh, don't mind me, honey, I'm just putting vitamins in, and like doesn't even think to hide it. Like, ugh, so disturbing. So of course they come to this horrific realization that Dee Dee is poisoning her own stepmother. And so they kick her out of the house. And this unfortunately affected both Dee Dee and Gypsy very badly. They had years of housing insecurity. They moved many times throughout Gypsy's childhood. And as they moved farther and farther away, and over periods of time, it became increasingly difficult for Rod to visit his daughter. So in 2005, Gypsy and Dee Dee are living in New Orleans, and Hurricane Katrina blows through. And their apartment complex was utterly destroyed, so they moved into a shelter for over a month. Dee Dee neglected to contact any family, even when she had the chance. I think she, looking back, the assumption is that she liked this feeling of, oh, these people are all wondering if we're okay and alive, and I'm just going to leave them hanging. So Rod and Christy are desperately trying to track them down, as many families were back then in 2005. I remember how horrific that was. And she's just actively not staying in touch, not telling Rod his daughter's alive.
Yeah, just loving the attention.
Just loving it. Just loving being chased, And the storm killed over 1,300 people. So, this isn't no laughing matter. And due to Gypsy's disabilities, as this happened so often through her childhood, relief workers found a special place for them to live at a hospital, and they were flown there by a helicopter. So her mom, of course, is like eating this up, right? Like, oh, we get special attention, we get to be flown around in a helicopter, we get our own special space in the shelter. And so it's just this vicious cycle. Over the years, they had many charitable accommodations. For example, Ronald McDonald Nonprofit Housing, which a lot of us know is provided for families of children undergoing medical treatments. We already said the Miranda Lambert thing, just a lot of like special treatment, not probably in the eyes of Gypsy, but at least in the eyes of her mother. So in Missouri, Dee Dee began seeking new diagnoses and treatments for Gypsy because I guess leukemia wasn't enough. I don't know. And she just had to get her fix somehow. And she had a blank slate with a team of new doctors because she told everyone, which I definitely mentioned in episode 15, that all her medical records had been washed away in Hurricane Katrina. So she basically used that as a convenient excuse to say, everything is gone, just trust me and my
Oh, it
history.
actually it worked beautifully. Like, I mean,
Scarily well.
to talk, I mean, that really is such a. It was almost like a blessing for her specifically of like, oh, well, now doctors have to listen to me
It
and I
fit
can
her
make this.
narrative so perfectly.
I mean, she might as well have tripled the shit that was going on in her file of
Oh,
like,
she sure did.
oh, she did. Okay.
Oh,
Great.
she did. She started adding new diagnoses. She, like, for example, she even said that Gypsy's birth certificate was gone. So she's like, now I can invent any birthday I want for my child.
Right.
Just like, just sick. And by the way, it wasn't true. Like, she still had this stuff, but doctors didn't need to know that.
This is not your forte of research. I don't expect you to know this, but do you know if she ever, well, we know what happens to her, so I guess there was no interviews on her end about like knowing she was wrong. I guess my thought is like,
it's so funny you asked that in episode 15 too.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I don't change all the time, but I do wish I wish I knew if she felt any fucking guilt about this at all. I'm sure Gypsy-Rose also feels the same way. But,
yeah, I know. I'm just thinking.
I'm just like, man, like it's one thing to be doing things and like kind of just make up lies and maybe not have to pay attention to all you're saying. But when you're actively doing stuff like that, like you have to know what you're doing is wrong, or you have to like. But
I know. I mean,
we'll never know.
I'm looking now into just like a brief scan of Munchausen by proxy. It's hard to tell, and I think it's such a vague. It's a hard thing to diagnose in a person, and so I think it's not even necessarily fully understood. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, folks. If there's somebody who knows, which I assume much more than I do about this, but I do really think
they probably think they're being more helpful than they're not.
That's
or
what I'm
something.
saying. I think like it's because it's a mental illness. Like I think there's an element to it of like delusion maybe, or just like not fully understanding. But also like they're very aware they're wrong, you know? Like they know they're wrong. Because they hide shit.
But maybe they think
change
like,
their
oh,
names
well,
and they lie to doctors.
Maybe it's also, I mean, part of that like that, well, I know better than the doctor, so I'm just going to say like I don't know. I'm rambling for no reason.
Well, but it's like, I know my child better than anyone, you know?
Yes,
and it's like,
that's what I'm
yeah, no, and I totally get that. And, you know, it's hard because it's abuse, absolutely. And there's no way to excuse it. But at the same time, it's also a mental disorder. So it's like, it seems like a very messy situation. And I apologize for not giving a clearer answer.
No, I
was
literally
hoping
started
you would
it with,
ask.
I don't expect you to know.
I was hoping you'd ask because you asked in episode 15 and I was like, I don't fucking know.
I like how you knew I might ask again and you still didn't.
Well, there's not really an answer. Like I did listen. I actually did study this a little bit because I listened to So Something Was Wrong, the podcast. They had an expert come in to talk about, I think it was an expert. I forget who it was, but somebody came in with a lot of experience in this field to discuss Munchausen by proxy. And I listened to that and I learned a lot, but also I learned how convoluted it gets, how hard it is to pinpoint, how hard it is to diagnose, and how little it's understood. And so it's just one of those things where you don't really get a clear answer, no matter how much you kind of look into it. And like you said, there's no way to check in with Dee Dee. Yeah. And even if now she was in prison and she said, oh, I feel really guilty, it's like, well, does she or not? Like, we don't even know. Yeah. Even if she said she did to save face.
Yeah, I don't think that's something that you ever really fully.
I don't think she would ever have even admitted it.
Yeah, I think she's been like, oh, well, they're persecuted. She would have turned to the victim, I think.
Yeah, I don't think she would have ever even admitted to it. I don't know that. That's just an assumption. But yeah, my theory is she would never have even gotten as far as to say she felt guilty because she claimed she did nothing wrong. That's that's my theory, because it seems like that's how she lived her life. So yeah, that being said, she started looking for new treatments and diagnoses for Gypsy. She had a full blank slate, like I said, with this new team of doctors, telling them all the medical records had been vanished and washed away by Katrina. And so Gypsy had all these biopsies and examinations done, and they all came back normal. And because of this, one of her doctors, and I'm pretty sure this is fucking Bernardo Flasterstein, and that's how this name came up, he began to question all these diagnoses. he considered it another red flag that Dee Dee didn't know the exact nature. Remember how I said she was always so vague about things?
Mm-hmm.
He was like, why wouldn't you know the exact nature of her cancer or the length of chemo she's been on or the length of treatment? Like, why wouldn't you know that as the mother who's so involved in her health? Like, it's shady that you're not giving me the details.
Right.
And so when a nurse then came forward and presented him with 3 different files she had gotten about Gypsy, all with a different birth year, not just a different birth date, but a birth year, he
Whoopsies.
became convinced that she had been kidnapped. He thought
Bernardo was so fucking on top of it.
I know. And so he really thought like that something is very wrong here. And so he sent the Department of Family Services to their home. And he told Dee Dee that the Department of Family Services told Dee Dee they needed to obtain a valid birth certificate. But of course, she didn't have it. She said it washed away in Katrina. And the report kind of got just put in the cabinet somewhere. And it was never followed up on. And she left and went to a new doctor. So it's like, you know, he could have maybe followed up, but like at that point, what can you do? You've already called the authorities. You've already put your concerns in, written them on paper.
Mm-hmm.
It's like at a certain point, I don't want to say like, oh, I'm just vouching for all the doctors that didn't. I just don't know what more you could have done. I don't know.
Right.
So knowing she was now under suspicion after the Department of Family Services came by, Dee Dee simply took Gypsy to a whole new doctor's office, and this was just her MO. The second, like, anybody raised an eyebrow, she was just out of there. She would change her own name several times. She would often max out other people's credit cards before leaving town. And there was actually a warrant out for her arrest for writing bad checks. So she would just pack up and move the second anything kind of went wrong. And so wherever they would end up next, Dee Dee would like immediately charm her neighbors. She was always thought of as the most dedicated, doting parent anyone could possibly be. And of course, everyone also fell in love with Gypsy because she was so upbeat and always smiling. And according to Dee Dee, Gypsy, this is what she would tell the neighbors, you know, who were like, "What? Oh, tell us more about your daughter." And she would say, Gypsy, when she was born, suffered this traumatic brain injury and she's intellectually disabled. And so therefore she has the mental capacity of a 7-year-old. And so she encouraged Gypsy to pursue things like Disney and Barbies and very like little kid interests because she wanted her to come off as very young and infantile. Yeah, exactly. And so she often dressed Gypsy up in these princess costumes. Like if you look back at a lot of the photos and videos, she's always wearing like princess wigs and princess costumes. And so she didn't have many regular clothes. She only had like a Cinderella dress, yellow
I wonder
dress.
if now in hindsight, she refuses to fucking watch a Disney movie.
I can't imagine how like, over it you would be. Yeah.
I know. Or
it's
like
gotta be very triggering.
Or like costume parties or like Halloween or something. It's like, oh, the last thing I want to fucking do.
I don't want to put on a wig ever again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
So she would wear these big wigs, these like curl, and there were like very oftentimes obvious wigs because she's also wearing the matching dress, like princess dress, you know. And so she would shave Gypsy's head, Dee Dee would, and say, well, your hair's going to fall out due to your medications anyway, so we might as well keep it neat and shave it down. And so she shaved her head regularly.
And what a way to excuse her ever having to find out that her hair can grow.
Correct.
Although, I'm wondering if one of the signs Gypsy caught on to was like, my hair's still coming in buzz. Like, we still have to keep cutting it. Like,
I guess, but how would you even know any different? Like, you wouldn't know how a quote unquote normal person's hair comes in.
That's true.
You know, yeah. I don't want to say normal, but like a cancer-free person. I feel like if her mom says like, oh, wow, it's looking really thin, you just kind of believe her, you know? And it's like, she's so manipulative. I feel like for a long time, I mean, you're right. I think eventually she really definitely, I mean, we know she definitely started to question things. But I think for a long time, her mom would just manipulate her. Excuses for everything. So in 2008, Dee Dee and Gypsy finally move into a house of their own, built by Habitat for Humanity and custom made to accommodate Gypsy's wheelchair. I mean, it's just so fucking heartbreaking. One, that this girl is not even sick. I mean, now she is, but right, like naturally she's not even sick and she's being forced into all this. Two, there's so many people who are sick and disabled and need...
Like that money could have gone to... That home could have gone somewhere else.
Somebody who really needed it and not someone taking advantage. It's just so fucked up.
I wonder, like, if Dee Dee were alive today, how many organizations would be like suing for
great
money,
point.
you know, of
I
like
mean, the number of Make-A-Wish, they did everything. They did all of those. Ronald McDonald. I mean, it's like they're charities, so like, are they going to be able to sue for? I don't know.
Right.
And like, does she have the money? No. So I don't know if, but it's got to not.
I wonder
feel
what
good.
lawsuits would look like today.
I do too.
Yeah.
In one interview, Gypsy sat beside Dee Dee, beaming, and said to the camera, "It just proves that happy endings aren't just in fairy tales; they're real." And like, I remember seeing this clip and thinking to myself, that's not a thing a kid says. Like, that's what somebody tells them to say.
Yeah,
Like,
that was scripted for sure.
Of course, right? And like, she later said, yeah, my mom told me to say that. And I was like, yeah, like even in the moment it felt weird. Like, why would you say that? Like,
we all looked at each other and went, huh? Yeah.
And it's like cute, right? 'Cause she's like, oh, fairy tales are real. And she had this very high pitched, I mean, if you've seen any of these clips or heard her voice, you know, but she had this kind of very high pitched voice. Dee Dee was, as usual, very popular in their new community where this house was built. She often hosted movie nights with a projector in their yard because the neighbors couldn't afford to send their children to the movie theaters.
Mhm.
And she would charge for concessions and then like take the money as a fundraising effort to go toward Gypsy's medical care. So of course, as the neighbors, you're thinking, this is amazing. Like my neighbor is hosting these movie nights and we pay a couple bucks for Skittles and we're saving a ton of money, but all our money's going to this good cause.
And she was just pocketing it.
And she's just pocketing it. Yeah. And so everyone in the neighborhood, you know, went out of their way to support Dee Dee and Gypsy. And of course, if you have like Habitat for Humanity building your house, like no one's going to question you.
Yeah, no one's questioning.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like official, quote unquote.
Because you're an asshole if you question that.
Of course. Absolutely. Yeah. No, you're 100% right. I bet you that was part of the fear too. So, of course, on the outside, it all seemed like sunshine and roses, and they're, you know, making it work, and despite the odds, like fighting this uphill battle. But of course, as we know now, at home, it was not all it seemed. Gypsy would often argue with her mother about her treatments and her alleged ailments, and Dee Dee would punish her. She emotionally manipulated Gypsy until she was convinced that the only way to receive love and affection was by being submissive. She was made to feel that if she didn't obey her mother, Dee Dee would just abandon her.
Mm.
And she needed 24 medications at this point daily, and she ate through a feeding tube. So, like, she couldn't just be risking abandonment. Like, she had nowhere else to turn.
How old is she at this point?
So this is 2008, so she's my age.
So 17.
17, yeah.
Wow.
So, you know, at this point, she knows she's, like, in that teenage rebellious spirit, but she can't do anything about it because
there's only so much you can test.
right and it's not just testing whether you'll be grounded, it's testing whether you'll survive, like life or death, you know.
Right.
And so she also at this point, even though she's 17, thought she was still a child. She thought she was 14. Actually, she thought she was 13 turning 14, and then on her 18th birthday thought it was her 14th birthday. And her dad called to wish her a happy birthday and made some joke about like, now that you're an adult. And her mom talked to Rod privately and said, you can't say stuff like that. She doesn't know how old she is.
And he didn't think that was weird?
He did. He thought that is a huge red flag, and he started getting concerned, thinking, what do you mean she doesn't know? Like, because she kept saying, oh, she's intellectually, you know, stunted and all this, and she's not but
is that why he kept paying for things after she turned 18 to like keep with the ruse?
No, I think he just thought she's very, very ill. I mean, he
was just being a good dad.
He hadn't questioned any of this yet. He's like, that's weird. Like, even though she's, you know, supposedly has this brain injury that can't, and she has the mind of a 7-year-old, like, even a 7-year-old knows they're 7 or like, you know, 14. It just, that part definitely was a red flag for him. But keep in mind, he has believed since this baby was 3 months old that this is a very, very, very frail and sick child. And so I
can't imagine what he thought when he found out too.
Yeah, even at this point, he's thinking, well, that's weird, but not like, oh, all of this is fake. Just like, well, she's this kind of a strange facet of this illness that she doesn't know how old she is. Like, that's weird. But Dee Dee was obsessed with infantilizing Gypsy, just another control tactic. For example, when Gypsy had her first period, Dee Dee refused to tell her about pads or tampons and made Gypsy wear diapers and said, like, this is what you do. And it's just so sad.
Well, also, if you believe that you're that sick, bleeding at this point must be like, just like another illness.
Another symptom, right.
Yeah, like wouldn't even consider it part of puberty.
Ugh, it's just so sad. And then you think you're years younger, so even
Mhm.
though, like, it is puberty, you're probably like, "Oh my god, like, I don't know about this."
Mhm.
So Gypsy still bathed with her mother at 18, slept in the same bed. She had very little privacy. She had no control over her life. She learned that if she didn't question Dee Dee, her life was peaceful, happy, content. Her mother treated her nicely. And if she questioned or spoke up, uh, she just was too terrified of the consequences. She had received enough punishments and consequences that she knew better than to test the waters. For example, some of the punishments were highly invasive medical procedures, which is,
Oh my
hey,
god.
my worst nightmare. Um, for example, she started putting numbing gel on Gypsy's gums before doctor's visits so that Gypsy would start drooling, salivating before doctor's visits, which is a symptom of muscular dystrophy. And as a result of this, a surgeon removed Gypsy's salivary glands. Yeah,
Oh my god.
it gets worse. So saliva, the reason we have it is to protect our teeth from decay, and so as a result of her salivary glands being surgically removed, her teeth began to deteriorate, and she had to have 16 of her teeth extracted until she was wearing dentures. Um,
Wow.
and just fun fact, that's half of your teeth. So Gypsy also, this is the worst one, underwent numerous eye surgeries, invasive eye surgeries, because her mother told her to lie about her vision. So they would test her vision and it was fine. And she would just lie and say, like, I don't see that, or it's blurry. And they gave her numerous eye procedures and surgeries. It's just
Absolutely
sick.
my worst nightmare.
It's just sick. It really is.
Nobody should be touching anyone's eyeballs ever.
Not for no reason.
Not for no
And
reason.
especially a child. And like Dee Dee just insisted she had all these vision issues and it was just all bullshit. So in 2011, Dee Dee takes Gypsy. So how old is she in 2011? Like 20.
Yeah, sure.
So in 2011, Dee Dee takes Gypsy to a sci-fi convention. It's like an anime Comic Con type thing called Vision Con.
Mm-hmm.
And Gypsy loved events like this because what you were saying earlier, kind of same idea. She loved being in a place where other people were dressed up and she didn't feel like a freak. She could go and wear a dress and a wig and it wasn't unusual. Like she wasn't sticking out.
And
like
it
a
had
sore
nothing
thumb.
to do with her well, I don't know if she was associating it with her illnesses or anything, but yeah, she felt like probably she was like everybody else.
Yes. She felt like she didn't stick out as much. Like everyone's not like staring at you. And so she loved these kind of events because she didn't look out of place. And while she was at this one in 2011, and keep in mind, she's 20 at this point, although she thinks she's like 16, 17? Yeah. There, she meets a man in his 30s when he bumps into her wheelchair and apologizes. And so they speak briefly and kind of like touch base with each other and give each other's basic info. And then he was able to find her on Facebook because she had a secret Facebook page, which she used while Dee Dee thought she was playing on Barbie websites.
And
did
it have a different name or like was Dee Dee just not
Emma Rose was the name.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, well, Gypsy Blanchard. Your mom hasn't looked that up to see if you have a page.
She definitely had a fake name. It was she had almost like a secondary life online, which
a Finsta back in the day.
Finsta, basically. So she had this kind of fake face or the secret Facebook page. And so this guy found it and they started chatting through Facebook. And the reason she even was able to do this is that a nonprofit for children with leukemia had given Gypsy a laptop as a gift. And so she was able to use this, thank God, to like find an escape and live some sort of fantasy of a normal teenager life on social media.
I'm surprised her mom let her even have a laptop.
Well, yeah, it was very much like only for Barbie websites, but I think at the time her mom probably didn't even know. Like a lot of our parents didn't know, and we didn't know the dangers of the internet. It's like, you just say you're on Barbie websites, like, okay.
Yeah.
Or maybe your mom didn't even
or like
know
you could even say
Facebook.
Club Penguin. No one knew Club Penguin could be salacious, and I'm sure
Right.
people found a way to do that,
Weird shit happened on there. And so, she's chatting with this guy on social media secretly in the middle of the night. And if you ever watch the Joey King version of this, it's so scary when she wakes up in the middle of the night to like open her laptop and like is so scared her mother's gonna see. It's like worse than any horror movie because you're so
It's
afraid.
the anxiety of like your mom finding out that you could actually have a personality outside of what she's concocted.
But
And
then the punishment is eye surgery.
yeah.
It's not like,
Yeah.
oh, now you can't be on Facebook. It's like your eyes are gonna be cut open.
I'm honestly surprised that that she didn't have doctors do surgeries that made her eyesight worse to confirm that she had bad eyesight.
Oh, they did. I think they did. I think they actively fucked up her eyes.
Fuck.
Because she kept saying her vision's wrong, her vision's bad. And if they're giving repeated eye surgeries to someone who has good vision,
Yeah, you're right. Oh my God.
you know,
Okay. Yes.
it's just,
Oh my God.
yeah, it's creating a problem that didn't exist, which is so disturbing. And so she's on Facebook. She's opening up to this new friend, quote unquote, about her life, things her mom makes her do, the fact that she could secretly walk, even though her mom made her use a wheelchair. And she kind of built this fantasy idea that this guy was like her knight in shining armor who would rescue her, even though he was in his mid-30s and she, at least she thought, was only 15. So huge red flag, okay, from this guy, because he also thinks she's 15. Just to be clear.
Uh-oh.
That's what she's told him. So
Okay. So there are multiple
this is already bad.
crimes
She's
happening.
being victimized by multiple people. Yes.
Okay. Understood.
And so she finds by chance one day an insurance card, her own insurance card, and she sees her birth year was 1991. And she realizes she's not 15, she's 19. And armed with this knowledge, she tells this man, and he's like, hell yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
come to my house. Oh, God. And so he encouraged her to leave Dee Dee and come live with him. And he told her that she's an adult, she can make her own choices, which technically is true. And so while Dee Dee slept, Gypsy stole several $1,000s in cash, as well as pain medication, because after a major surgery, I mean, you can't blame a girl. She had become dependent on these medications that her mother was forcing her to take. So she takes these pain pills, she takes the money, and she leaves. And she leaves a note for her mom, revealing that she had found out her real age. She packed her bag with her clothes, which were just princess dresses because she didn't have
she didn't
any
have anything
normal
else.
clothes.
Oh God.
And she hitchhiked out of town wearing a blonde wig. She arrives at this guy's house, and it is, of course, nothing like the fantasy she has built up in her mind. He was on parole, and so he could not move her out of state like he had said he would. And he lived with a friend, and again, they're in their 30s, and he thought she was 15 at first, so this is all very troubling. Back at home, Dee Dee discovered Gypsy missing, of course, and freaked the fuck out, then found these messages between Gypsy and this guy on Gypsy's phone, and so she starts calling people who had attended the convention with them until she pinpointed who this guy was.
That's amazing that she could even do that.
Oh yeah, she was fucking on a warpath. Like, there was no way of stopping this woman. She found out this guy's address. She drives there at 8 a.m., knocks on the door, tells Gypsy if she comes home, she could see this guy whenever she wanted, but she brings a falsified birth certificate insisting that what Gypsy had seen was wrong, and she actually is 15. And so she shows this to the guy, and he's like, okay, well, if she's a minor, then, like, of course, take her home. Like, he just believes it, because why would somebody lie about that?
Right.
And so he thinks, like, oh, God, this girl's, like, 15. Yeah, take her home.
Yeah, uh-oh.
And he's on parole, reminder. I'm sure that was going to look really good to his parole officer. So Gypsy, like, felt this weird pull to believe her mom, because why not? Like, she has had to trust her mom her whole life. Her mom is insisting, like, you're 15, you're not 19. And so she's like, okay, I mean, I guess. And she goes home with her mom, because also she's not having the time of her life at this guy's house anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so back at the house, Gypsy was punished. Her mother handcuffed her to the bed for 2 weeks.
Oh my God.
She tethered Gypsy's body to her own body at night with a dog leash so that
oh my God.
anytime Gypsy shifted or moved, her mom would wake up. She slept with a knife on the bedside table as an intimidation tactic.
Holy shit.
She put a cow tongue and some of Gypsy's menstrual blood and a photo of the man and Gypsy into a mason jar and displayed it, and said it was a hex so that she, Gypsy-Rose, would never find love and happiness.
Holy fuck. Oh my God, that last
It's
one, they got more and more twisted with every sentence you said.
it's like physical abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, like every type of abuse.
Spiritual abuse
Spiritual
was
abuse, literally, yes.
weird as shit abuse. Oh my
Yep.
God.
And Dee Dee
Okay.
also insisted to Gypsy Rose, fear mongering, that kissing makes you pregnant. And so Gypsy insisted nothing had happened, but Dee Dee forced her to take a pregnancy test.
Hmm.
Just humiliating, just horrible.
Yeah, it's just
She
degradation at this
it
point.
is. It is. Yeah, it's like exceeded infantilizing. It's like degrading now. She began to physically attack Gypsy too. She often punched her. She hit her with coat hangers, like the sharp end of coat hang. Just
And this was new. This was like after
this
she
is new.
after she like
I think it's
after
because she's old enough to fight back now, like old enough to like try
right.
and
Or
rebel.
also she can also say like, after all I've done for you, you betray me like this,
100%.
and
That is exactly
feels like
it.
she lost the trust she had or something.
She's like my little girl, you know, and you're yeah, exactly. So slowly weeks went by, and finally when Gypsy has once again completely submitted to Dee Dee, she's unchained from the bed and allowed small freedoms again, such as bathing herself. And Gypsy has now determined with utter certainty that there is no escaping this house. Dee Dee would always find her and she would be punished, and it wasn't worth it. And so she just played nicely and stayed home. And she could have reached out to her father, but she didn't know she could because Dee Dee had told her he was violently abusive and had told her all these stories. Like, for example, Dee Dee's told her that he had once picked Gypsy up by the face and neck as an infant and hurled her across the room. And so Gypsy's terrified of this man. Like, she doesn't know
Right.
that this is all bullshit. And the dad doesn't know that Dee Dee's making all this up either.
Right.
And he barely knows where they are. So Gypsy had no idea that after finding out his daughter didn't know her real age, remember that? On her 18th birthday, he saw a big red flag, and he and Christy started pushing Dee Dee to say, like, we want to see her in person. We want to talk to her. We don't want
I feel like
these...
that all that did was set Dee Dee up to make sure that she really made sure they never saw him. Like
that they never saw her.
Really, yeah, like really amped up the abuse allegations or something to like scare her away from everyone.
To say, like, you don't want to be near him. Listen to what he's
Yes.
done to you and what he would do to you now if you saw him. Yeah, the fear-mongering was very manipulative. And Gypsy just believed, like, this was her life. And so what she would do is she would sometimes sneak on the computer and just do social media and try to, like, escape, you know?
Mhm.
And one of the things she did is she made an account on a Christian dating website.
Ooh,
And I know.
Christian Mingle. Was it that?
I imagine it was Christian Mingle.
It had to be Christian Mingle.
Right?
That was taking the entire town by storm back
And you know
then.
what? I bet watching that commercial with your mom, you feel less like you're rebelling when it's like, oh, a godly, faithful relationship. And you're like, that can't be so bad, right, Mom? Like, she won't be that upset. Well, things didn't quite go that direction. But in any case, she met this guy named Nicholas Godejohn. And once again, she develops this fantasy that Nicholas is her savior. But in reality, he takes advantage of her vulnerability and her like sheltered lack of understanding of the world. He introduces Gypsy to the BDSM lifestyle, which of course in and of itself is not a bad thing. But she was so inexperienced at life that I don't think she quite understood. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, like, she was weirdly, I don't know what this means or if there's even any point to this, but it feels like someone who has constantly been degraded their whole life maybe doesn't understand consent the right way for BDSM.
But she's never been a consenting person. That's exactly
especially
true.
when thinking kissing gets you pregnant. I don't think she doesn't know anything about vanilla sex, let alone a space where like you could be submissive and things where
kinks and things like that. Yeah,
things that she's already had to deal with in a non-sexual way. You know?
And she's gone through hell already, so it's like, what's big whoop, now it's also part of your sex life, you know?
Yeah, I don't know what the overlap there is, but there's something there that makes it feel extra off-putting.
I do too. I think so too. Yeah. And like you said, she's never really been consenting at all, like in her own life, in her own home. And so that's a great point. Can you even understand consent at that point? And so he introduced Gypsy to this lifestyle. He required her to address him as her master.
Oh my God. Okay.
And their relationship escalated until Nicholas insisted he could rescue Gypsy if only he was able to murder her mother first.
Yeah, that's the part I should have gone, oh my God, at. That's Very interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Not a red flag at
Interesting
all.
hot take, I guess, from Nicholas.
A super accelerated request from someone who
And
even
also, like,
even
this
people
is
I've known for 10 years, if they made that request, I'd be like, that's a little too far. Minute one into this relationship is kind of crazy.
yeah, a little bit tough. But I guess she's calling him master, so it's like, well,
She could have thought it was a fantasy or something. Like it could have been like not actually.
I think she kind of did. I mean, again, I'm just saying this kind of out of pocket, and she's spoken herself on this topic, but I think there was an element of like, this is a fantasy life. It's an
It couldn't be
internet
real.
life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
could not be real.
And we
Yeah.
can all understand that, like growing up with the internet and like trying to figure out what's real, what's not real, and having some harsh realities thrown our way, you know? And so either way, she was like, sure, okay. And she encouraged him. And she genuinely at this point also think about how desperate she was just to get out of this fucking house. And she has already tried to escape and she's now getting chained to the bed. I mean, this is an abuser. If this were like a partner, you wouldn't think twice about like attacking in the middle of the night to get out of there. You know what I mean? And of course, it's just so much more twisted because it's a parent.
Or even, I mean, because maybe it was also, maybe they connected in a way where like maybe she didn't understand what consent was, or if this was real, or if this was just the internet talk. But like she also probably also fantasized about hurting her mom or doing whatever it took to escape. Like
Yeah,
even
her
if it
mom
wasn't,
had been hurting her since she was 3 months old, you know?
yeah. So
Actively.
I could see like her not totally hating the idea of like, even if this is play pretend, like just an outlet of a creative outlet of like what
Totally.
life would be like if I got away from her. And
Totally.
so it's odd, but also given the circumstances, I don't think it's like totally unreasonable.
I mean,
I don't know.
she's in her 20s. She's like 23 at this point. And she
If someone was doing this to you for 2 decades,
she can't picture a life outside of this at all without her mom being out of the picture.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's encouraging of this, and like you said, it could be real. It could be just like a fantasy thing on the internet, but either way, she encourages this behavior. She plays into it, and on June 9th, 2015, Nicholas traveled to Missouri, waited outside the Blanchard house for Gypsy's sign that Dee Dee was asleep. Then Gypsy hid in the bathroom while Nicholas stabbed her mother to death. And afterward, according to Gypsy, Nicholas remarked that he was going to sexually violate Dee Dee's remains. And according to Gypsy, she allowed him to rape her instead to protect her mother's body, her mother's remains.
wow, that part gets overlooked pretty often, I think.
Is that not so dark?
Wow. I don't even know where to begin with that.
I will say, like, there's because they were tried, you know, separately, and they've gone their separate ways. So Nicholas later insisted he never raped or coerced Gypsy, and this was all consensual sex in her house after he killed Dee Dee. But you know,
Given her like mental state and like her like unawareness of anything sexual, like I don't, she was not capable of consent, I don't think.
I would argue the same.
Okay. Also, and also, even if she was saying, do it to me instead, I mean, how many times has there been a sexual assault where someone was saying, do it to me instead, and like still not wanting it, you know?
Exactly.
And they knew what sex was to even be able to say that. So like there's, I think, okay, so.
And to jump from thinking kissing is going to get you pregnant to
that.
Having violent sex next to your murdered mother's body, like you can't tell me that was just a happy consensual thing. I'm sorry.
No, that's a trauma that she was not prepared for.
I can't wrap my head around that.
I mean, even if she thought she was consenting to
exactly,
even if she thought she was consenting to "you can kiss me" because she thought that's what sex was.
Good point.
Then imagine finding out as more things happen. I mean, then all of a sudden it actually truly is a full assault because you never saw that coming.
I think it was all becoming very real all at once, and you know,
she had to just be in shock.
He claimed she was consenting. She claims she wasn't, which let's be real. Who do we believe, you know, in this situation? Even if she said like, yeah, sure, let's do that. Like you said, that does not necessarily imply full consent. I'm sorry.
No.
And so anyway, the pair then fled together to Big Bend, Wisconsin. And after several days passed, Gypsy started getting worried because nobody had found out about her mother's death. And as a result, she decided to make a Facebook post to try and get somebody's attention.
Interesting. Like it was like going to like a digital scene of the crime.
Yes, going back to the scene of the crime. You're 100% right. I hadn't
Because
even
like
thought of it that way.
she was so paranoid that she hadn't been busted that she had to
No,
set
she
herself
was-
up to get busted.
No, she was upset that her mother's body hadn't been found, and it was just
Oh, I
laying
see.
in the house.
She was starting to feel guilty that like no one had discovered her.
Yeah.
Okay. Got
And
it.
so she tried to post on Facebook, on her mom's Facebook page, to try and, or no, actually she and Dee Dee shared a Facebook page. It was called like Dee Dee. That page still existed during episode 15. I remember because I went and found the posts, which
Holy
are
shit.
so disturbing because you can even see. And I'm so mad. I'm like, I bet you I didn't screenshot that. And I'm like, so mad it passed me because like, no way that still exists.
No.
And secondly, like, how dumb. Maybe it is in my screenshots. I'll go back and look. But either way, it was very alarming to see the post, but then also all the neighbors and friends saying, Dee Dee, what is this? This isn't funny. Like, you shouldn't say stuff like that. Or like, oh, did you get hacked? And, you know, just concerned friends and neighbors being like, what is this about? Or is this like a movie reference? They had no idea, you know, what was really going on, obviously. So what happened is she decided to make this Facebook post, but Nicholas decided he got to choose what it said. So the post said, June 14th, by the way, this is 5 days after the murder. She wrote, "That bitch is dead" on Dee Dee's Facebook wall. Friends and family start calling Dee Dee, and they're like, shit, this is weird. And they can't get a hold of her, so they alert police. And there was another post that was even more upsetting. I'm just not even going to go there right now. But you can easily Google it. Friends and family couldn't get in contact with Dee Dee, so they alerted the police, and that is how they found the body of Dee Dee. And the way I presented it in episode 15 was like this murder, this a little bit of setup, then this murder scene with the Facebook posts. And the way it was just so alarming without any context, it's just like, I don't think I'll ever get you that good again. To be honest.
Oh, shucks.
Oh, shucks.
Also, I wonder, honestly, like if 5 days had passed, I'm sure part of it was like wondering if anyone had found her mom. And like, I'm sure like it's, you know, relationships with our own parents, despite a entire story like this are convoluted and complex. But like, I can't imagine after going through something like that, one, having so much trauma and like your mom not actually being there to take care of you for the first time ever.
For the first time.
And so being scared to be alone, having this, not even knowing how to have your own personhood because you've never had a moment to have an identity. So that's scary on its own. Having the guilt of what's just happened, the shock of everything that just happened to you and your body, because I mean, I can't imagine having all that.
You're
and,
suddenly
like, probably,
sexually active.
and honestly, like for the last 5 days, he's probably been continually assaulting you. Like,
Yeah, I mean, if you have to call him master and you're scared to even go outside, yeah, it's not a good look.
I imagine that she probably, that Facebook post was also a bit of a cry for help of like someone discover her so that way, like, even if I get busted, I'm away from this guy.
Do you
like,
remember? Do you remember that she was living in his family's house?
Nope.
They were like in his family home during this, and his parents are just downstairs. Like, this is normal.
That's so odd.
It's so odd.
For them to be like, "What'd you do today?" It's like nothing.
Post it on Facebook. Hee hee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah. It's just like, it's just all so jarring. But so the police see this Facebook post, and you're right, it might be a cry for help because they immediately link it to the IP address of the Go to John family, and they go up there, they arrest Nicholas and Gypsy, and Gypsy still thinks that she's 19, and the police tell her, you're actually 23. Like, she doesn't even know how old she is still.
Amazing. Truly amazing.
Unbelievable. And so when people saw Gypsy walking in the news, like people who knew her, they were horrified because they're realizing like, oh my God, we've been like coddling this child for so long. And meanwhile, her mother was just abusing her, bamboozling all of us, conning everybody, harming her child. It's just, people were horrified. People were really, really horrified. I will say though, when Rod, her dad, saw her, he was elated because his first thought was, oh
Something
my God,
happened to
she
her.
can walk.
Oh.
Yeah.
She can walk. Yeah.
He was like, oh my God, she can fucking walk. And then it took him a little bit to come around to, wait a minute. No, this is so dark. She could walk the whole time. it just was like, for a moment, he was like, oh my God, she's been healed, you know? And then he's like, wait a minute, all of this was fake. And then it's just this dark, like,
Yeah, how
backstory.
quickly did it get found out that she was actually fine the entire time and
It
her
was pretty quick.
Okay.
I think it was the walking on the news was like shocking. And then like very quickly it unraveled. And Gypsy's abuse story came to light immediately. Her family stood with her. Her stepmom, Chris, said there was probably never a time in Gypsy's entire life that she wasn't under lock and key. But of course, many people were criticizing Gypsy and horrified and saying things like, why didn't you stand up for yourself or just leave? Which, like, fuck off.
Mhm.
But then, you know, to their point, murder is probably not the best option. But what is the best option? I don't know, you know? So Gypsy's defenders argued that leaving would be nearly impossible. She had no legal documentation proving her age or identity. So if her mother found her, she could just tell police or tell whoever, oh, this is just a child, you know,
Mhm.
and then be punished. And even if she did prove she was an adult, Dee Dee had spent over 2 decades convincing everyone that she had an intellectual disability. So even if she was technically old enough, her mom could say she's not capable of caring for herself. She needs me to take care of her. And people kind of link this to the Britney Spears case sometimes, like the way that a family can take legal control over your life and claim you're unfit to care for yourself. And it almost like creates a self-fulfilling prophecy, like you said earlier.
Yep.
Dee Dee was so manipulative that dozens of medical professionals had done completely unnecessary and harmful surgeries on Gypsy for 20 years. And a close family friend who had bonded with Dee Dee after learning about Gypsy's cancer history because her own sister had leukemia, by the way, what a fucking punch in the gut to realize they were
Ugh.
just faking it, said she and everyone else truly believed that Gypsy had the intellectual capacity of a very young child. And they like treated her as such, and they just...
But also, if you're being only spoken to by one person who infantilizes you, if you're only like learning what she wants you to learn, it's probably really easy to make sure
you're gonna come
somebody
off that
doesn't
way. Yeah.
grow up. Yeah.
And if you're wearing princess dresses and like playing with Barbies, yeah, I mean, I can see why that would be an easy story to believe.
Yeah. It's also amazing how many doctors were willing to perform things without any documentation or going
Well,
against their own evidence. And
Well, one thing that I think happens in these cases is that like one doctor will be like, okay, yeah, and diagnose it. And so suddenly it's in your official medical record that you
Right.
have leukemia. And it's like, well, it's in the paperwork. Who's going to
I wonder if there was
challenge that?
ever a case or if there was ever like a class added to medical school after Gypsy-Rose about like how to fucking double check things before you put things in official files.
And I think
like,
that's, I mean, that must be a fine line to walk as a medical professional as well, of
Yeah.
like challenging some sick child, you know, it like, I imagine that alone is like a huge hill to have to walk up if you're going to try and prove
to be like
someone's
an
not
ultra
sick.
skeptic. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And like, I don't know.
There's
I don't
got to
know.
be some sort of, if anyone is listening who's like been to medical school or enough to know like what they teach you about Munchausen by proxy, I would love to know like what the protocol for that is.
And I think
now, at
it's
least.
considered such a rare disorder, but it's not quite as rare as far as I heard on that one podcast episode. Like statistically, it's not as rare as people think it is. And there's shades of it, right? There's a spectrum of just exaggerating your child's symptoms. And then
Mhm.
there's, of course, like making your child ill, which is the severe side of it, which obviously goes hand in
Right.
hand with this case. But yeah, she said that this friend who said she had befriended Gypsy-Rose and really truly believed that she had this intellectual disability, she claimed that in an interview, she admitted that if Gypsy had pulled her aside and said and asked for help, she does not know if she would have believed her. Like she might have gone and told her mom. Like that's how much she was convinced that this was a real deal story.
Dang.
Which is a horrifying. She was like, it was just a heartbreaking realization to realize like, even if she came to me and confided in me, I might not have believed her, which is very like brave to admit, I guess, you know, because I think a
Mhm.
lot of us think we would be different, but
Right.
maybe not. The last time Gypsy left, she, of course, ended up handcuffed to a bed for 2 weeks. And she said she was so terrified of her mother that she never sought help because she knew she'd be punished. And all she had known was just this absolute control and no escape. And ultimately, Nicholas Godejohn, who was tried separately, was convicted of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Gypsy, meanwhile, was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 10 years in prison with the possibility of early release. And in prison, Gypsy said she felt free for the first time in her life, which is just such a twisted thought. And I mentioned this in episode 15 too, but she apparently gained weight in prison. She's like one of the only people
Well,
that
sure.
gained weight in prison because the food, she was so excited to be eating food rather than all the people who were disgusted by cafeteria food.
Yeah.
And so, she said one of her happiest memories is the first day she arrived at prison, went to sit outside at a picnic table, and realized she could just talk openly with people and make friendships.
Wow.
It was just that jarring of a change that it was one of the best days of her life. And so she did have a substance use disorder for a while after all the surgeries and all the medications she had been on. And she was able to access drugs in prison. She even lied to her stepmom, asking for $50 to pay back a woman she owed for drugs. But she was just so disillusioned by her mother's manipulation that she wanted to break the cycle, and she actually called her stepmom and admitted that she lied for the $50 and said she
Wow.
had a substance use disorder. She just wanted to be so upfront. And her mom was
That's pretty big.
it's huge. I think I totally agree.
Because she could have
And
just turned into her mom immediately.
yeah, or just let her mom kind of rule her life in that way, that you're still sick and this is just your life forever. But she said she wanted to fight that, and so she was able to recover, and she maintained sobriety in prison, which God,
Wow.
that's amazing. She also received an education in prison. She had not been schooled this entire time and rapidly gained weight.
Prison almost had to be really exciting. So,
recess or something, it's you're
you just get to
suddenly
learn and you get to
free.
talk to people and you get to walk.
You get to
and you
walk
to
and learn your own
eat food.
Yeah. Not be force fed and she had obviously deep trauma that not everyone knew what to do with. She didn't have teeth, and so her dentures were ill fitting, didn't fit her anymore. So she wasn't. There was definitely things she faced in prison. But on December 28th of 2023, Gypsy was released early after serving 8 years of her 10-year sentence. And of course, tens of thousands of people now on TikTok instead of Facebook, anxiously awaited her return to the real world. And she made social media accounts, and she wanted to share her life and talk about her life after prison. And apparently, that movie with Joey King that I was mentioning, which is called The Act, and I remember watching it in total bewilderment and just shock back in the day. Even though I'd already covered the story, it was just so alarming. But apparently, she never gave the producers permission to tell her story and never received compensation, which I did not realize at the time, and is very icky and not cool.
Yuck.
Yeah, very bad. And of course, people were celebrating her as an abuse survivor, but then when she wasn't a perfect victim, people started turning on her and saying your upbeat attitude is disturbing. You should take more accountability. That you didn't do this right, you didn't say that right. And Gypsy says she does regret her mother's death every single day, and thinks murder is never the answer or an acceptable choice. She said if she could redo her life, she's not sure whether she would go all the way back to childhood and ask family for help, or if she would report Nicholas to the police, or what she would do. But she said either way, she would undo her mother's death because she regrets it every single day. And so today, Gypsy's married. She's expecting her first child with her husband. She's sharing her life in a new series, Gypsy-Rose Life After Lockup, which I have not seen, but I know got some attention when that started.
Is the person she's engaged to the person that she liked at some point over the computer?
The old man?
I feel like it was someone from her past that she's now married to.
I thought so too, but I don't know.
I don't know how, but I feel like it was a friend she met online or something, or a friend she met at a convention. I don't know. I know she was married to the first guy, and then that got a lot of attention on TikTok, and then they broke up. But I think they broke up because she had feelings for someone from her past.
Oh.
We'll find out in Love After Lockup.
Love After Lockup. Check it out. I'm hoping she's at least compensated for that one a little bit. Oh, okay. Her old flame, ex-fiance, Ken Urker. I don't know who that is.
Okay, great. We'll find out in Love After Lockup.
But in any case, we'll find out. So she has some mixed feelings, understandably, about all the medical professionals who failed her and all the traumatic medical procedures with no medical evidence that were unnecessary. And of course, several doctors insist, they tried to intervene and they tried to talk to her alone, but, she was I guess, brainwashed by her own mother. But then Gypsy asked her interviewers to consider whether she is lying about never being offered help or if the doctors are lying to save face after operating on a child without cause. And I was like,
Fucking
I mean,
good point.
Can't argue with that one. And there's such a long history. This is disturbing. There's such a long history of surgeries that Gypsy didn't know about all of them until she watched interviews with doctors who performed surgeries on her that she didn't even remember having.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine it's all just a big medical blur.
A blur and like just a trauma blur. And so anyway,
like, I can't even imagine the trauma of like if you actually have an illness now, like the way you psych yourself out.
God,
like
you're right. Or like if you have to take you're prescribed a medication, like,
or she's like been going to a doctor. She's pregnant. Imagine going to a hospital to like have to give birth. I wonder if she's just like doing a full blown home birth. She's like, fuck that. Like I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame her. I mean,
I don't know.
I'd tell her don't do it, but you know. That's me because I'm a big scaredy cat. Okay, so Gypsy has, you know, a lot of friends and a big support system. She always was like this very upbeat character, so I think it wasn't hard for her to kind of get back into society in that way. And she started advocating for herself, which is awesome. She did accuse her grandfather of raping her when she was 9 years old, but her uncle claims that this story is one Dee Dee taught her over the years to tell to other people as like a, you know, so it's just so fucked up that even the stories about sexual assault are all twisted and we don't even know what's true. Anyway, despite all this, everything she's had to face and process, Gypsy is very excited about her future. And upon her release, she said, "It's nice to be home. I'm back home in Louisiana, enjoying a beautiful day outside, and I've got a lot of great things happening really soon."
Good.
So.
Great.
Wow, what a story. Sorry that was so long. Dear Lord.
It was a great story, though.
Thank you, Em.
I hadn't heard it in like 385 episodes or something.
Yeah. It's back.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm sorry to the people who like short episodes, but you're welcome to the people who like long episodes. We really tackled it all today.
And we're supposed to record a listener episode after this.
Ha 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 ha. Okay. Well, since we have to go do a listener's episode, I guess we just end quickly on this one. But
let's do it. But come join us on Patreon if you want. We're at patreon.com/ATWWD podcast. And we do a little after hours yappy hour where we continue talking, can you believe it, about different topics depending on our mood and feeling of the day.
Yay. And
that's
why
we
drink.